Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. This is story about what if Naruto has purple lightning bloodline part 1. Before I start, please do support for more amazing content and comments for part 2. Do consider to subscribe my channel and share my video to your friends and check out the description as well. Let's start the video. Breathing heavily, Naruto looked at the unmoving figure of Uchiha Sasuke, his longtime rival and yet at the same time, best friend. Also, the same person who tried to betray Konohagakure. When the fight started, it became clear early on that Sasuke outclassed him in every category. All but one. His Kage Bunshin proved invaluable, and combine that with his awesome Rasengan, it had given him victory. Databeo. The blonde-haired struggled to get up and saw his sensei approaching. He waved excitedly. Kakashi-sensei. Over here. Kakashi, whom had noticed his pupil much sooner, was already taking in the entire scene. The Valley of the End was moderately damaged, due to the fight that had just occurred. He came to a halt in front of Naruto and looked at the unconscious Uchiha before finally settling upon Naruto. His eyes turned into an upside-down U form. Well, I'm pleasantly surprised that you managed to stop him from doing anything more than what he just did. He patted the blonde on his head before moving to Sasuke, picking him up from the ground. What about the others, Kakashi-sensei? Shikamaru, Chojian. But before the genin could continue, Kakashi put his hand up, stopping the hyperactive kid. Relax, Naruto. They are all fine, all taken care of. They should be back home right about now. Kakashi started to make his first steps to start off the return journey. Are you ready to go? The Jinchuriki looked down at his clothing and pouted. Look at my clothes. It's completely ruined. That team is definitely going to buy new ones for me. Kakashi gave him the once-over and smiled, which remained unseen for Naruto. It's an improvement, you should keep it. He turned around, facing the direction he came from. Naruto directed his pout to his sensei. There's nothing wrong with orange, Kakashi-sensei. Now, let me tell you all about how I kicked Sasuke's ass. It all started with Naruto started telling how the entire story went down, not paying attention to Kakashi's heavy sigh. By the time they arrived at the gate, Naruto's eyelids were slowly wavering in its attempt to keep his eyes open. Despite it all, he couldn't wait to let Sakura-chan know of his success. However, upon arrival, it soon became clear that the villagers had gotten wind of something going on with the Uchiha. So, when the Kakashi came dashing in with Sasuke in his arms, whom was covered in wounds and bruises, they became worried about the health of the last loyal Uchiha. It didn't help the situation at all when they saw the Kyuubi brat barging in straight after, looking almost equally bruised, yet missing any cuts or wounds he had previously. It didn't take the citizen of Konoha long to figure out that, whatever happened to Uchiha Sasuke, it was Naruto's fault. You went too far this time, you brat. One spat at the blonde. You'll fucking pay for what you did, an older man screamed. Naruto was taken aback by the sudden insults but tried to shrug it off after recollecting himself quickly. He held his head up high and sped up, going after his sensei. After Sasuke was admitted into the hospital and Naruto got debriefed, he finally had the chance to recollect himself. After eating 3 meager bowls of ramen at Ichiraku's, he chose the shortest path to his home, hoping to avoid the angry mob that apparently were out to get him. When he got home, it was where Naruto nearly reached his breaking point. The windows were smashed in and the walls were smeared with foul words. It had happened in the past, but he had hoped that after he had been made genin, those days would soon be behind him. It never stops. He created a couple of Kage Bunshins and started cleaning it up, muttering and cursing the bastards who had trashed his home. I'll show 'em. Once I'm Hokage, they will have to look up to me and respect me. He held his head high. The young blonde knew that despite all those people who hated him, there were still people that did care. His old teammates, Iruka-sensei, Kakashi-sensei. A smile formed on his face. Even Tsunade-ba-chan and even Erosenin, with their weird tendencies. Now that I think about it, why are all the older shinobi so crazy weird? Kakashi-sensei with his perverted books, or Ba-chan with her stupid gambling. I'm not going to be like that. No way. Databeo. He was going to keep training, to get stronger, to protect the people who were the most important to him. After cleaning up and having slept for a couple of hours, he decided to see how everyone was doing and headed to the hospital. This time he stuck to the rooftops, dodging any attempt the villagers could have made. The blonde genin arrived at the hospital fairly quickly, having darted across the rooftops in an orange blur. He walked inside and walked to the front desk and waited for the guy in front of him to finish before it was his turn. You really should pay more attention to your surroundings, brat. A voice whispered in his ear. The blonde responded by jumping in the air, startled to say the least. He turned around angrily and saw none other than Erosenin. Why are you here? Aren't you supposed to drool on some women? The Sannin in return slammed his fist on top of the blonde's head. I'm here to look at that seal my old teammate put on Sasuke. And stop calling me Yaro Sennin, he shouted in the blonde's ear before dragging him along towards the Uchiha's room. How are the others doing? Kakashi didn't really say what was going on with them. The blonde asked in concern. They'll be alright, considering who you guys went up against. Tsunade took care of them personally. Naruto smiled in relief, glad to hear his friends were going to be okay. They better. The first thing Naruto noticed was the two ANBU stationed in front of Sasuke's room. Why are they here? He asked with a large amount of distrust. Jiraiya in return sighed. Because he tried to betray the village, why else do you think? Come on, let's go inside. The guards barely seemed to register the two newcomers, they merely nodded to the Sannin. Once inside, Naruto rushed over to the bed and noticed the still form of Sakura sleeping in the chair next to the bed. He softly shook her, trying to wake her up. Sakura-chan, wake up. She softly stirred before slowly opening her eyes. She yawned and stretched herself. Once her eyes were fully focused, did she sneer at him. What did you do, Naruto? She half shouted while pointing her finger at him. Look at him, he's a mess. How could you do this to him? Jiraiya backed out, not wanting to be on the receiving end of the rage that eerily reminded him of Tsunade. Naruto back up, eyes wide and full of surprise. Waha? What does it even matter if he's banged up? He's back. Orochimaru didn't get his hands on him, that's what matters. Because of your barbaric actions, he may have permanent damage to his nerves in his hand. There's a chance he may never be able to properly mold chakra again. She shouted, marching towards him, her fist already raised. Jiraiya butted in. Let's give her time to calm down, kid. She's almost exactly like Tsunade when she's on a warpath. He ushered Naruto outside, quickly closing the door before the pink-haired monstrosity could do any harm to the blonde. Once they were outside the hospital, did Jiraiya turn to the blonde. Listen, I have to start looking for Orochimaru's base, why don't you lay low for a while? I know that a couple of the old hags are out for blood. Catch a good night's rest, and in a couple of days this will all blow over. He gave the blonde a slap on the shoulder. Naruto grumbled something. Can't I just come with you? Sorry kid, but I ain't taking you on a mission that takes you anywhere near that snake. I'll be back in a couple of days. And with that the legendary Sannin disappeared in a puff of smoke. Naruto walked down the street, heading to Ichiraku Ramen. His thoughts wandered back to his fight with Sasuke. He had won, there was no doubt in that, but it didn't feel like one with Sakura freaking out like she had. And what if it was true what she had said? What if he has to quit because I screwed up his hand beyond recognition? Suddenly even ramen didn't sound appealing to him. Instead he turned right and headed to the Hokage monument, intent on sitting there for a while. As per usual, he ignored the hated looks and insults, or he tried to at least. In his mind he was replaying the entire ordeal that had happened. Luckily the squad that was formed to retrieve Sasuke was alright. From what he had heard from Jiraiya, they were incredibly lucky after everything that had happened. He sat down on top of the Yandame's head, unknown to him still that the Yandame was in fact his father. I'll never get bored of this view. With a grin he laid down on his back. Maybe everything would be alright. The next day he visited Choji, who had only this morning had woken up. Upon arriving he noticed that he wasn't the only one whom wanted to visit the Akimichi. Good to see you're alright, Naruto, Niji said with a polite nod to the blonde. Niji, you're alright. Niji gave a rare smile, his entire shoulder was taped to his chest and bandaged heavily. It seemed fate smiled down on me. Naruto facepalmed. Don't tell me you're starting with that whole fate crap again, are you? The Hyuga raised a single eyebrow. That was a joke. Before the blonde could respond, Shikamaru spoke up instead. Troublesome, you really have to work on your social skills, Niji. Naruto turned around and saw the recently promoted Chunin standing in the door opening. He couldn't help but grin at him. It looks like everyone is alright then. Naruto had already heard about Kiba's condition and slow but steady recovery. Shikamaru glanced towards the bed, where Choji was sleeping. All things considering, we went up against Orochimaru's elite, and we survived. And not only that, we got Sasuke back as well, Choji managed to say between his gasps for air. Everyone turned to the Akimichi. Take it easy, Choji. There will be time enough to catch up, Shikamaru said as he hurried to his best friend's side. Without Lee we wouldn't have, if he hadn't helped me with that bone guy, I doubt we would have caught up with Sasuke. Niji nodded. We were lucky not only with Lee, but with our allies from Suna as well. I wouldn't be standing here otherwise, Shikamura muttered with clenched fists. Choji seemed to notice and tried to sit up. It doesn't matter until the end. We all survived, and succeeded in the mission, that's all that matters. At that moment Kakashi walked in, his perverted book present as per usual. You are right, Choji. You worked together as a team and brought the mission to a successful close. You went up against Jonin Elite. You all should be very proud. Pride swelled up and Naruto laughed. We were awesome. We should all be Chunin. Kakashi snapped his book shut. Naruto, let's go see if Sasuke's awake. Naruto waved at the retrieval squad and quickly followed in his sensei's footsteps. You know, Kakashi began casually, glancing down at the blonde. This will surely be put in your file as a commendation and will help you along towards the rank of Chunin. Naruto's eyes grew wide as saucers. Really? That is super cool. I'll be Chunin before Sasuke or Sakura. I can't wait to show him off. Naruto, I didn't say it was a guaranteed promotion. All I said was that it would help you along. Naruto didn't listen, he was already far away in his fantasy. They turned a corner and noticed the stationed A and BU still standing guard in front of the Uchiha's room. As soon as they approached, the Anbu turned to them. Kakashi-senpai. He gave a nod to the silver-haired Jonin. Itutsuko, is that you? That's been a while, he turned to the blonde. Go ahead, I'll see you inside in a bit. Naruto entered the room and noticed that Sakura wasn't here this time. He walked towards the bed and hesitated when he noticed that his wounded teammate was awake. Hey Sasuke, he slowly began. Sasuke looked up and as soon as he did, the blonde froze. The pure unfiltered hatred that sprang from the Uchiha's eyes came as a surprise to Naruto. What have you done? Naruto wanted to take another step forward but instead had to take several steps back as Sasuke jumped out of his bed. Sasuke, you were trying to betray us, I'm not giving up on you that easily. Naruto raised his voice, his own anger now reaching a boiling point. Sasuke roared in anger. You ruined everything. I hate you. How am I supposed to get strong enough now to kill Itachi? I'll kill you. He swung his good fist at Naruto, who was stunned, unable to believe what his best friend was saying. As the fist was about to slam into his face, it instead got blocked by a fingerless gloved hand. Sasuke looked up, seething with hatred. It was Kakashi who had once again come to save the day. What do you think you're doing, Sasuke? Kakashi asked sternly, his gaze snapping from the blonde to the black-haired Sharingan user. Sasuke pulled his arm out of Kakashi's grasp and turned around and was slowly walking back to his bed. Why do you even care? Just leave me alone. Kakashi nodded to the Anbu, who had rushed in the same moment Kakashi had. Itutsuko left the room, resuming his guard duty. What the hell has happened to our team? Why is it always when I turn my back for a single moment that the two of you always end up fighting each other? He turned to Naruto first, who was looking down to his hands, with a sad look on his face. We're supposed to be a team. Where is the Sasuke and Naruto who could go toe-to-toe with Haku with teamwork that I haven't seen in so long? I suggest you change this attitude and fast, otherwise we're going to be doing this my way, and you'll be wishing you listened to me the first time around. If I hear from the guards that something like this happens again, there will be severe consequences for the both of you. Naruto wanted to speak up and say that he hadn't done anything, but Kakashi had already left through the window. He turned to Sasuke, pondering what he should say. It was then the door opened once more and Sakura came in. Sasuke-kun? Are you Awadash? She immediately noticed the tense situation between the two. What have you done this time, Naruto Baka? Nothing, I'll just leave. He walked with slumped shoulders to the door, brushing past Sakura. How about you stay away? We never wanted you. You always were nothing but trouble. Sakura sneered at him, slamming the door behind him. Naruto walked down the corridor. All his hopes of a peaceful resolution had gone out the window. There was no way that Team 7 would stay together after all that. He exited the hospital and aimlessly walked around the village for hours. The words of Sasuke and Sakura echoing through his head. I'll kill you! Eventually he ended up at his apartment, but once more it had been trashed, along with hateful insults that were written on the walls. Tears welled up in his eyes and he turned around, resuming his trek through the village. How did this all happen? He passed by a restaurant that was not completely unlike Ichiraku's. Inside he could hear his sensei's voice. I know, Asuma, but I wonder if it isn't best if I shuffle the team and replace Naruto with another genin. This way, if Sasuke is pardoned from his crime, then he could focus on his training. If Naruto stays on this team, it's inevitable they will end up fighting each other again, and this time it could end much worse. As long as you don't think about trading him with one of mine. I seriously wouldn't know how to handle the kid, especially if what you told me about his little incident is true. A second voice answered. Naruto immediately identified him as Asuma. I can't believe what I'm hearing. How could you even dare to consider such a thing about Naruto? He has good intentions. You can't simply replace him like a piece of clothing. A female voice spoke up in disbelief. Naruto slumped against the wall, tears rolling down his face. Even Kakashi-sensei? Kakashi sighed. Naruto's intentions are good, and he certainly made me proud during the retrieval mission, but the little things he does do right doesn't outweigh all the bad. The female voice once more spoke up, but Naruto had heard enough. He wiped the tears from his face and sprinted to the Hokage monument once more, his surroundings a blur. In one day I've lost Sasuke, Sakura and Kakashi-sensei. Is it something I did wrong? I brought him back and I get treated like this. His train of thought got interrupted by a Chunin. Uzumaki-sen, your presence is ordered by the Hokage. And before Naruto could ask why, the Chunin had already disappeared. Naruto made a sharp turn and headed to the Hokage tower, the one person he knew wouldn't abandon him. With his arms crossed behind his head he walked into the Hokage's office, trying to hide his sadness with a grin. What's up, Bachan? Close the door please, Naruto. Tsunade asked, her hands clasped together, supporting her head. Naruto noticed a small group of people who were standing beside Tsunade, whom he vaguely remembered as the advisors to the late Sandaime. He closed the door behind him and turned back to the group. What's going on? She sighed. Sadness and guilt were easily shown on her face. Naruto, she began, trying her best to keep her emotions in check. Because of your recent loss of control of the Kyuubi's chakra, you are a potential liability. We had hoped that with Jiraiya guidance you would be able to restrain yourself, but it seems we were wrong. Tomorrow there will be a seal placed upon your chakra pathways, forever blocking it. You will no longer be a shinobi. I am sorry, Naruto. Naruto stumbled back, barely able to comprehend what was going on. I did not lose control of Kyuubi's chakra. I was in full control of it during the entire fight. He couldn't believe what was going on. At this point Hamura joined in. Sasuke Uchiha begs to differ, Genin. He saw red chakra envelop your body, including a tail. You were losing control of the Kyuubi's chakra. We can't allow such a risk to remain unrestrained and free in our village. You should consider yourself lucky. If not for the Hokage we would have taken a more drastic approach. Being a shinobi is all I have left. Don't take that away from me, please. I didn't lose control. The decision is final. You will report to the Hokage tomorrow, at 2 in the afternoon. Kohara Yuditane butted in, standing to the right of Tsunade. Tsunade looked in his eyes as her head still leaned on her intertwined fingers. There's nothing I can do, Naruto. They overruled me. I am so sorry. Naruto's eyes darted from the left to the right. He slowly turned to the door, swaying from the left to the right. This can't be happening to me. Naruto, are you alright? Tsunade asked as she stood up from her seat, concerned for the boy she considered family. The blonde started breathing heavily. He fell to one knee. They can't do this to me. After everything I've done for them. After everything they've done to me. The attendants in the room stared at the boy in surprise but lacked any concern except for Tsunade, whom was crouching beside him. Naruto, you need to slow your breathing, you're hyperventilating. Naruto pushed her away. Leave me alone. He stood up and wobbled off, trying to regain his composure. It took the blonde a while to get his breathing back under control. He arrived at his thrashed apartment. By now there was only one emotion left that coursed through his veins. Hate. Pure and utter hatred for everyone inside the village. From the lowly villagers to the very Hokage herself. So, they think I'm a liability, huh? They want to never see me again. Well, that can easily be arranged. He softly, yet harshly spoke to himself. He tore his headband from his head and placed it on the table. He reached for a kunai, and with one swift motion slashed through the leaf symbol. He rammed the kunai in the desk. He started packing his stuff. Whatever wasn't destroyed he stuffed into his backpack. He gave one last glance around his apartment, and then grabbed a piece of power and started scribbling something down. Once done, he looked at it with satisfaction that was fueled further by his anger. Your liability is gone forever. Leave me be and I will leave you be. If you don't, I will let the Kyuubi loose inside this village. This is a promise, and I never break my promises. I hope you will all rot in hell. Naruto Uzumaki. Without hesitation he left the apartment, surprised that there weren't any Umbu guarding him. He slowly and silently slipped through the alleys, refraining from using the rooftops. Eventually he came at the main gate and noticed that there were 2 Chunin playing with a pack of cards. He created a Kage Bunshin and then proceeded to henge them into 2 gorgeous girls. He positioned the two clones just within eyesight of the guards and started making contact with the few people still roaming on the streets. It certainly didn't take long before the guards noticed the girls and started waving and trying to make small talk. The clones in return only waved back and made a couple of flirty gestures. The blonde needed all the attention on the girls and not on him. He slowly snuck past the gatehouse and dashed towards the forest, quickly hiding behind a bush when he reached the tree line. He glanced around, trying to see if anyone saw him sneak out. It doesn't seem anyone saw me. Alright, time to gain some distance. I need to lure them into an opposite direction. The blonde turned to the west and started off slowly, trying to gain as little attention as possible before maximizing his speed. He had to gain distance and fast, before turning his attention to his real destination, Nami no Kuni. 1 month had passed since Naruto's abrupt departure from Konoha, and surprisingly there hadn't been any retrieval squads or hunter-nin that had investigated Nami no Kuni. Perhaps the false trail he had set up had helped, or perhaps they weren't even trying to find him, and why should they? In the eyes of Konoha he was the demon they wanted to get rid of. Naruto in return didn't care about them. If they did find him he would do what was necessary to stay out of Konoha's clutches, even if that meant killing his former friends. All his friends had abandoned him the moment he needed them most. Tsunade had betrayed him. He couldn't suppress the sneer that crawled upon his face. Those bastards! They were eager to jump into the fire to rescue Sasuke the moment I need help. They were nowhere to be found. He was wandering through the village of Nami no Kuni, adopting a smile instead of the sneer. The people here were kind and helpful. They knew who he was, and after he had told his situation the village accepted him in open arms. He felt that place, which was strange, considering all that had happened. The moment he had arrived he dumped his orange jumpsuit and bought a dark blue long-sleeved shirt with matching pants. He had his pouch strapped to his right leg, filled with kunai and shuriken. He also bought himself a shoulder strap that went from his right shoulder to his waist on his lower left side. This too he had filled with kunai. The outfit change was the second thing on his list. The first was meeting up with Tazuna and his family. They took him in without him even having to ask for help. They gave him their spare room along with the promise he could stay for as long as he wanted. However, he couldn't slack off. Training was something that had slacked off in the first week of his arrival, but the blonde had picked it up the second with a fairly harsh training regime that Kakashi would be proud of, or so he at least thought before remembering the words his sensei had uttered in that restaurant. Every day he trained himself to his limit with a tight schedule. The Genin Nukenin would assign different tasks for every day of the week, starting every Monday with an intense taijutsu training, using his Kagebenshin as his opponents. Tuesdays were used to increase his chakra control. It had improved steadily when he was still on Team 7, but often it would be skipped or interrupted due to missions or other assignments Kakashi had them do. Naruto knew that chakra control was something that he needed to improve, and fast. His Wednesdays were spent on brushing up on his sword skills, which were simply put terrible. Luckily there was an old retired samurai, Kiai, that had been helping him with this part of his training. Thursdays he would repay the debt he owed to Zuna's family by helping Tsunami around the house, gathering groceries or cleaning the house. She had vehemently refused his help at first, but he had insisted, and with the help of his clones they were always done fairly quickly. If that was the case he would help Tazuna with his work, which now amounted to the construction of new homes and other yet similar work. This included the building of a wall, to keep out any future threats as well as giving the villagers a sense of safety. And on Friday he would train Genjutsu, which was as awful as a cup of ramen that was past its expiring date. The weekend was wasted on relaxing and sparring with Inari, who was showing more and more interest in the shinobi life. He even went with him on Wednesday to watch him train, talking with Kiai and asking for tips. He noticed the sun was setting, so he hurried along. He knew dinner was most likely already on the table. He smiled when he saw his new home and dashed the last few meters. At least he was, until he slammed into Inari. "Watch where you're going." Inari looked up and shoved the blonde off of him. "No! You watch where you're going." Naruto picked himself up and dragged the kid by his arm towards the door. "I did. And then you decided to jump in front of me." "I did not." "You did." "Did not." "Did so." The bickering continued as they entered the living room and sat down at the table, oblivious to the looks Tsunami and Tazuna were giving them. "You're lucky I used my awesome abilities to slow down, or otherwise you'd have been seriously hurt," Naruto boasted, ignoring the own voice inside his head that said liar, 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 liar. "You don't even believe that yourself. In fact, if I knew how to use chakra I would already have beaten you." Naruto thumped him on the back of his head, causing the kid to shout in pain. "Yeah? Then why didn't you dodge this?" Because I don't know how to use chakra, you big doofus. You're so full of it, Naruto shouted back. So are you. At this point, Hiruzen decided to butt in. Alright, enough. Let's eat before it gets cold. Tsunade couldn't help but smile at the boy's antics, glad to see that Inari had finally let go of the awful things that had occurred only mere months earlier. I was thinking, after dinner the dark-haired woman started, pointing her chopsticks at the blonde. When Naruto has taken a shower, we could go have a good old-fashioned movie night. Naruto shoved his nose under his arms and sniffed. It's not that bad. Tazuna grunted as he slowly chewed on his food. Yeah, brat, it is. You're taking a shower. The blonde in return shrugged and started savagely attacking his noodles, not aware of the looks Tazuna gave him or the chuckle Tsunami let out. 3 weeks later, Tuesday. Naruto was climbing up and down the tree, only using his feet and of course chakra to keep him attached to the wood. He grunted as he almost lost control, but he managed to keep himself upright. Despite the fact that he had managed to complete the task his former sensei had given the team, he hadn't mastered it, not by a long shot. The blonde was about halfway up when his concentration was broken by a sudden explosion. He tried grasping for one of the branches but failed and fell down, landing painfully on his back. Ugh! What the F? He suddenly jerked up and looked towards the direction of the sound. He scrambled to his feet and sprinted towards the smoke that was rapidly rising in the air. When arriving on the main street that was heading towards the exit, he saw a large group of people running to safety. He quickly hopped to the roof, escaping the mass of fleeing people. He was about to hop from rooftop to rooftop towards the smoke when he noticed a small girl by herself, with the risk of being trampled by the horde of people. He quickly hopped down and sprinted across, grabbing her and making a wild jump into a nearby alley. Are you okay? The girl sniffled and wiped the dirt from her face. I don't know where my mom is. Naruto glanced around and noticed a young couple standing at the entrance of the alleyway, dodging the stampede of people. He ran to them, with the girl in his arms. Hey you! You need to keep an eye on her while I check out what's going on. The boy was about to speak up when he noticed the outfit of the blonde and nodded, recognizing who he was. Of course, Uzumaki-san. Naruto put the girl down and wiped the tears off her face. We'll find your mom, don't worry. These two will keep an eye on you, okay? She nodded once, glancing at the couple before turning her dark brown eyes back to the Uzumaki. Find my mom, promise it to me. I'll find her, I promise, Dadabayo. He exclaimed before jumping out of the alley and onto the roof, dashing across the rooftops, quickly approaching the origin of the explosion. With one final hop, he jumped off the last rooftop and landed in front of the gate that was still under construction and wasn't even remotely close to being finished. He immediately noticed two strangers standing there. One was holding an elderly man by his throat whilst the other was twirling a blade in his hand, kicking a pebble that lay in front of his feet. Naruto narrowed his eyes and took in the scene. Bodies were lying everywhere. The majority were the guards the village had managed to hire, but they weren't shinobi. Up against bandits, they could hold their own, but against shinobi they never stood a chance. He crossed his arms and glared at the duo. He took in their features and noticed they were wearing dark robe that extended to just below their eyes. The sleeves of the robes were short, revealing their arms from the elbow down. One of them had red hair, whilst the other was a dark-haired man in his late 20s. Naruto saw the captive's pain clearly etched on his face and shouted, "Bastards! Let him go!" The duo shared a look, before grinning at the blonde. The one who was holding the elder man gave a chakra-enhanced squeeze, snapping the man's neck, killing him instantly. Naruto roared in anger, red chakra leaking out of his body, enveloping him completely. You'll pay for that. That's demonic chakra, you must be a Jinchuriki. The one on the right concluded. He unzipped his robe and threw it on the ground, revealing a green outfit underneath that allowed him more maneuverability. The second quickly followed suit and tossed the sunglasses he was wearing on top of his robe. Naruto had run out of patience and dashed to the duo, crossing the distance in the blink of an eye. He swung his fist but missed spectacularly, which the two strangers instantly abused. Now, Rigio! One shouted. Rigio slammed his leg into the blonde's stomach, slamming him straight into the other's fist. Naruto groaned and fell to the ground but retaliated immediately by sweeping the legs out from Rigio. The dark-haired attacker tried to intervene, but Naruto saw this in time and grabbed the incoming hand and threw the stranger on top of Rigio. He quickly hopped to his feet. Kaiga Bunshin no Jutsu. Several dozens of clones appeared in a puff of smoke, all shrouded in red chakra. Charge! The original shouted. And so they did. They threw their fists at the two attackers, who in return had regained their composure and were fighting of the group of clones. One by one the clones disappeared in puffs of smoke. With a grunt, Rigio punched the last clone in its face. Hide-eye. I've not seen this technique before. It doesn't matter. They're dispatched of easily. Hide-eye answered swiftly, his eyes darting around waiting for the last of the smoke to dissipate. Take this. Naruto shouted as he came from the right, swinging his fist towards the face of Hide-eye. The dark-haired opponent managed to block the attack and retaliated with a fist of his own. His partner chimed in and swung his blade only to be met with nothing but smoke. Another fake? Rasengan! The real Naruto burst through the white smoke and slammed his blue sphere into Rigio, who screamed in pain, trying to resist the attack but to no avail. He got blasted into the newly constructed house left of the gate. Naruto turned to the remaining guy who only looked at the destroyed building. One left. He charged Hide-eye and unleashed a flurry of punches that his opponent managed to block with moderate ease. With a roar, Naruto's opponent countered and kicked him in the chest, causing the blonde to skid backwards. The former Konoha Nin charged forward once more and exchanged more blows with his foe. Every fist he swung got retaliated by Hide-eye. I need to change things up. He's caught on to my fighting style. He then jumped back and slid 2 kunai from his shoulder strap, one in each hand. Hide-eye in return reached for 2 short blades and charged forward, his blades clashing with Naruto's kunai. You'll pay for killing Rigio. Naruto grunted before wildly slashing with his kunai, which got deflected by his opponent. Who the hell are you guys? He slammed his kunai once more against Hida's blade. It doesn't matter who we are. Hide-eye pushed back against the attack of Naruto, and swiped his leg against the blonde's, causing him to stumble backwards. Naruto fell on his back but immediately backflipped onto his feet, tossing his kunai and immediately following with a hand sign. Kage Bunshin no Jutsu. A large cloud of smoke appeared once more and another large group of clones charged forward and across the marketplace. The creator once more, with the help of a clone pouring chakra into his hand, forming a Rasengan. Not this time. Hide-eye shouted before throwing his blades into the incoming wave of clones. 2 puffs indicated that at the very least they had hit their targets. He raised his hands and a shimmering mirror appeared in front of him. Naruto lowered into a defensive stance, waiting for his opponent to strike. That was until the mirror got shattered to pieces. Huh! Huh indeed! A voice screamed in his ears before he plunged his blade into the back of the blonde. Naruto fell to the ground, screaming in pain, his Rasengan along with the clones that were attacking Hide-eye dissipated. I told you, you would pay for killing my partner. Naruto moaned in pain as he crawled towards the feet of his opponent, desperately clutching it. He grabbed the blade that still stuck in his back and with a lot of effort he managed to pull it out, letting it fall to the ground. Hide-eye crouched down and grabbed the kid by his spiky blonde hair. Your world will burn, everyone will die, not that you'll be there to witness it. You really don't know anything about Jinchurikis, do you? Naruto managed to say between clenched teeth, a smirk appearing on his face. Hide-eye in return rammed the face of the blonde into the ground before pulling it back up, small wounds littered across his face. Does it really matter? Naruto's smirk turned into outright laughter. Of course, team. We have advanced healing. A kunai slid out of his sleeve and into the young boy's hand. In one swift motion he rammed the kunai into the left side of his throat. The dark-haired opponent stumbled back as his hand clutched at the kunai. A loud gurgling sound erupted from his throat as blood started pouring out of his mouth and down his chin. The former genin slowly stood up, panting heavily. The wound on his back was already almost completely healed. Slowly the red aura that had enveloped his body disappeared. Hide-eye fell to his knees only to try and stand up again, his hand outstretched towards the victor. Finally, he fell to the ground, never to stand back up again. Naruto turned around, checking if the other guy was indeed dead. He looked towards the damaged building, and what he saw made his blood boil and his hands clench into fists. In front of him stood a man dressed in black with red clouds adorning his outfit. He had black hair and unique lines under his red glowing eyes. Naruto couldn't help but feel fear clutch at his throat. He swallowed nervously. His rage had been set aside for fear. Itachi Uchiha. Itachi just stood there, void of emotion. You have improved since our last encounter. He slowly took a couple of steps forward, dragging the body of Rigio along with him. Naruto growled, dropping into an aggressive stance. One of his hands reached for the shoulder strap and swiftly grabbed a kunai, throwing it at the Akatsuki agent, only for it to pass straight through him. Genjutsu? But when? The moment you looked into my eyes. But do not be frightened, I am only here to talk. Itachi spoke as he dropped the genjutsu. Talk? What is there to talk about? You're Akatsuki. You're here to capture me. Naruto's eyes darted around. He knew the last time Itachi had found him he was accompanied by a big blue guy. Itachi walked forward once more and came to a standstill, mere meters away from the blonde, letting the body fall to the ground with a thud. That's where you're wrong, I'm alone, the rest doesn't know. Naruto crossed his arms. Well? What's so important that you have to tell me, a mere genin? Itachi merely stared at him. In a few years from now an unknown group will travel to the elemental countries. They will lay waste to our world and kill everyone. He motioned with his hand to the body next to him. These two are scouts, here to evaluate our strength. Naruto glanced down at the body with slight discomfort. Who are they? And how are you so sure they intend to kill us all? Every location they've visited so far has been annihilated. We don't know who they are or where they come from, all we know is that we're next. How do you even know all this? An acquaintance told me. I trust him. Itachi turned sideways. He noticed the villagers were slowly starting to investigate, now that the fight had finally ended. Naruto looked around, noticing the villagers as well. Why are you telling me this? You have the potential to become incredibly strong, Naruto. I have no doubt you will play a big role in what is to come, whether you want to or not. The rest of the Akatsuki know this as well. If you didn't have the QB sealed inside you, Leader Sama would have undoubtedly approached you now that you are unaffiliated. Naruto crouched down and looked at the dead body. Guilt started welling up inside him, and he looked away. Itachi noticed and took a single step backwards. First time you've killed someone? Naruto nodded as balled his hands into a fist. They were scum and they deserved to die. Itachi remained as motionless as he had been throughout the conversation. It's normal to feel those things when you first killed someone. You'll eventually learn to live with it. Itachi started slowly walking back to the gate. These scouts are most likely the weakest amongst their ranks. Even if they are, do not under any circumstance underestimate them. Naruto smirked and stood back up. I guess I just have to get stronger then. But don't think you guys are off the hook yet. After this is done, you're next. Databao. Itachi turned around, and if Naruto didn't know any better, he swore he could have seen him smile. Interesting. One last thing. You won't gain the strength you seek here. Break your bonds with this village. They will only slow you down. If you want to defeat these unknowns, you have to think like one of them, act like one of them, become one of them. Become the monster they all fear you as. Naruto stood there with wide eyes. I don't know if I can do that. Do you know what you're asking of me? You want me to give up who I am, to give up my humanity? Itachi tilted his head. Was there a hint of recognition in his eyes? It is necessary. This is why we of the Akatsuki are so feared. Leave behind your name, start anew, and once you're strong enough, take on these unknowns. And with those words Itachi disappeared in a swirl of dust and leaves, leaving behind a saddened and confused Naruto. He looked at the lifeless body and noticed there were strange markings on the side of the man's neck moving down towards his shoulder, stopping at his elbow. He tore of the remains of his shirt, and saw that it looked like a seal of sorts drawn into a skull of a strange creature with strange markings around it. What is this? Naruto frowned and pressed his fingers against it, and immediately gasped in pain as a burning sensation that started at the tips of his finger was spreading throughout his left arm. Images started flashing through his head, of a creature with white hair and purplish skin whom was floating. 2 red horns were protruding from his head. The images in his head were accompanied by even more pain, and he screamed out loud as he fell to the ground. What is going on? Darkness consumed the boy as he passed out, his body not able to withstand the pain. He fell beside the body of Riggio. With one last glance at the seal had let darkness overcome him. Shortly thereafter the villagers started investigating further and noticed that Naruto was unconscious. For a moment they were worried that the blonde had died when they saw his still form. They sighed in relief when one of the villagers looked for a pulse and found one. They picked the boy up and rushed him to the first aid station, hoping that they would be able to help him. A couple of days later. Brat! What have you done? The QB roared at the blonde as tried to claw his way through the gate. Naruto stood there stunned. How the hell should I know that I would pass out if I touched that seal, you stupid stinking fox? All I did was touch it and… Exactly. Do you touch everything you see? You'll be real popular with your female species. The beast barked with laughter before resuming his rampage against the gate, who didn't budge in the slightest. What's it to you anyway? I got knocked out, that's all. The blonde replied, pointing his thumb at himself. The QB roared once more, his eyes glowed red. That's where you are wrong. Thanks to you my chakra is slowly draining away, it's going too fast to regenerate but too slow to kill me immediately. Something is draining me of my power, and it's because of the seal. Naruto took a step backwards in surprise. You're dying? His voice was a mixture of various emotions. The Kyuubi was the bane of everything that went wrong with him. He would finally be rid of the one who had caused him great pain. On the other hand, though, sadness. Sadness because the fox had become a part of him. He had saved his life on multiple occasions. But it will take some time, so don't go sentimental on me yet, brat. You should be happy that I'll finally be gone. The Kyuubi spoke, noticing the boy's distraught look on his face. Naruto nodded and shuffled with his feet. He could slowly feel the pressure fading away, indicating that he was regaining his consciousness. I'm sorry, Kyuubi, for what it's worth, you may have been the whole reason behind my messed up life, but you weren't always a pain in the ass. The demon grinned, baring his teeth. Pranking the entire village didn't help either, boy. Naruto returned the grin with one of his own. They had it coming, not that it matters now anymore. No, it doesn't. But you decided to make a stand. I respect that, and as a result, I will assist you in training. I may not be able to do much, but what I do know I'll pass along. Naruto looked at him with wide eyes. Praise from the almighty Kyuubi himself. Thanks. I'll become the strongest shinobi there is. Databeo. The Kyuubi slammed his enormous body once more against the gate. Stop with that incessant screaming. Naruto could only laugh as he regained consciousness. Naruto coughed as he slowly opened his eyes, only to shut them immediately again due to the extremely bright lights. He could hear voices around him and held his hands in front of his eyes to block the lights as he opened them again. Naruto Nizun! A voice shouted that clearly belonged to Inari. About damn time, kid! A gruff male voice spoke. Naruto turned to the older voice, still not being able to properly make out the persons in the room. Kenneth, old geezer. Glad to see you've woken up, Naruto-kun. I'll get the doctor. A female voice softly spoke, instantly knowing it was Tsunami. He couldn't help but smile and listened as he heard her footsteps receding as she left the room. So, anything important happened while I was out? He asked as his eyes finally adjusted to the lights. He looked to the left and saw Tazuna standing beside his bed. We managed to rebuild the house that was destroyed. Luckily no one was in the home when the guy got crashed into it. Naruto looked sheepishly and scratched his cheek, which turned out to be bandaged. Were you guys watching the fight? Inari spoke before Tazuna could. We were nearby. You really showed them Nisan. Could you teach me? Naruto ignored him and instead asked. How many were killed? Tazuna hesitated. They killed 12 guard that were stationed at the main gate. Luckily no civilian casualties. Naruto grimaced when he heard just how many people were killed by these monsters. If Itachi's right, then there's a whole lot more waiting for us. Tazuna noticed the grimace and patted him on the shoulder. You did great, kid. If you hadn't stopped them, they would have killed a lot more. Naruto silently nodded, his mind being plagued by not only the bodies that were laying there, but also by his own first kills. Blood streaming down his chin, dripping onto his face, his kunai still protruding from the man's throat. Haidai desperately trying to grasp it as he stumbled around and fell to one knee. The blonde snapped out of his reverie when a female doctor entered the room, closely followed by Tsunami. Ah, good to see you're awake, Uzumaki-san. How are you feeling? The doctor asked. Naruto flexed one of his arms, still feeling a bit sore. Doing just fine, only some sore muscles left. You can discharge me, no problem. He really hated hospitals. The doctor laughed. You sure act like it, but your body may disapprove. So let me check you out and we'll decide from there if it's wise to release you from our care. Naruto nodded and stood from his bed, realizing he was only wearing short and a shirt. The doctor stood in front of him and asked if he could pull his shirt up. He did what she asked and pulled his shirt over his head and threw it on the bed. The doctor started checking his vital signs by placing her hands on his chest with chakra slowly emitting from her hands. Alright, I've noticed nothing out of the ordinary. Your body is under a lot of stress though, so it's very important you take it easy for a while. I'd like to keep you here for the night to see if there aren't any surprises that could pop up. She stood back up and she handed the blonde his shirt. If everything goes well, we'll discharge you tomorrow. That's the least we can do after you saved our village, twice no less. She smiled at him before writing something down on her pad. She proceeded to give him a nod and silently left again, but not before Naruto thanked her and shook her hand. Naruto pulled his shirt back on and laid back down on bed, letting his hand rest on the pillow for a moment. He glanced at his new family and smiled. You guys want to know how I beat the crap out of those guys? Tazuna let out a bark of laughter. Well, we didn't see the entire fight, so I'm curious how this all started. Naruto started telling his story, waving with his hands enthusiastically. Well, it all started with this girl who was about to be run over by a large group of people. The next day, after Tazuna, Tsunami and Inari had arrived, Naruto got up and went to the closet, changing into a fresh set of clothes. He was ready to head home. It's so good to see you're feeling good again, Naruto-kun. If you're feeling well enough, we should head back home as soon as possible. Get you something good to eat. This hospital food can't be good for the patients here. Tsunami smiled as he appeared from behind the curtains in his new outfit. Let's get going. Naruto pumped his fist in the air. Sure, he was happy to leave the first aid station, but he had also had conflicted feelings about the whole situation. The killing he had done, the murders that were committed by those scouts, and of course his internal debate on whether or not to follow Itachi's advice. The group left the aid station and went home, stopping at a ramen stand for the blonde after he insisted on getting some ramen. Happily slurping his food whilst they were walking down the street, he couldn't help but feel truly at place. People were being nice to him, and even stopped to make small talk to him or someone from the group. When he still lived in Konoha, aside from Ichiraku Ramen or his friends, no one wanted to talk to him. They either sneered at him or gave him a wide berth. But if I don't do something about this threat, there won't be a home left. I can prevent that from happening. They arrived at their place and Naruto almost immediately went to his room, still deep in thought. He sat down on bed and flew his fingers through his hair. What do I do? I have to choose in what I've always wanted and in my responsibility as a shinobi. Tsunami knocked on the door. Naruto, are you decent? Interrupting him from his thoughts. Yeah, come on in, he said as he laid down on his back. She opened the door and entered the room, looking at him with worry. Are you feeling okay? You never go upstairs without having some lunch. I know you had some ramen, but that normally never sates your appetite. Naruto sat back and gave her a sincere smile. I guess I'm just not feeling that great yet. I'll take it easy at least today. I'll most likely feel as good as new after a good night's rest. Tsunami's concerned gaze almost made him waver, but he managed to stay true to his course. Alright, Naruto-kun, if you're sure that that's all, I'll leave you be. Get some sleep, okay? Naruto nodded at her. I promise I'll feel better in the morning. She walked over and hugged him, which was followed by a soft kiss on his cheek. Thank you for saving our village. No matter how Konoha has treated you, this can be your home if you wish it to be. Naruto felt tears well up and he swallowed, trying to get his emotions under control. I'd like that. Tsunami smiled and stood back up, ruffling his hair before turning around heading back out the room. She picked up the basket that was filled with clothing that still needed to dry. Naruto looked at her retreating back and sighed with a heavy heart. If I don't leave soon, I don't think I'll ever be able to. Naruto stood up and decided to go for a walk. Fresh air would do him good. He had to steel his emotions and make preparation. Hey, old geezer. I'm getting some fresh air. I'll be back later. He shouted towards Tazuna as he opened the front door. Watch it, brat. What you gonna do, beat me with your cane? Naruto shouted back as he stepped outside, closing the door behind him, but not before he dodged the apple Tazuna threw his way. Once this was all over, he could see himself settling down here. Yeah, I definitely could. With a smile, he walked down the road and back further into the village. With a smile, he walked down the small path. Naruto sighed in satisfaction as he pushed the flaps aside of the ramen stand, located on the market. Trade was Nami's main income of money, and because of it their economics had stabilized and grown. The difficult days for the small village seemed over. Of course, raiding Gato's places and taking his money and other valuables certainly helped. He walked towards to the mortuary that was situated next to the aid station. Naruto-san! A high-pitched voice shouted, causing the blonde to turn. A small girl came running over, dragging her mother by the hand. This is my mom. She wanted to say hi. Naruto instantly recognized the girl as the one he had saved mere days ago from being trampled. Hey there! I'm happy to see you managed to find your mom. The mother placed her hand on the back of her daughter's head. I wanted to thank you for saving my daughter's life. I got separated from her, and I couldn't get back to her. I'm incredibly grateful for what you've done, Uzumaki-san. She bowed deeply. Arigato. Naruto waved with his hands, trying to get her to stop. Oh please, that's not needed. Anyone would do the same thing. She smiled at the blonde. And you did. I can't thank you enough. I'm forever in your debt. He scratched the back of his head, chuckling. Well, if someone ever asks for me, who isn't of this village, please don't tell them anything. My stay here is kinda secret, hee. The woman nodded before grabbing her daughter's hand. Your secret is safe, No one in this village will say a word about your presence here. She winked at him before turning to her daughter. Come, Chia, let's get going. I'm sure Uzumaki-san has other things he has to attend to. Bye, Naruto-kun. The little kid waved as she and her mother became one with the crowd. The blonde waved before turning left and around the corner. He saw the mortuary and swiftly walked over. He walked over to the front desk. The woman cheerfully greeted the young genin. Well, well. If it isn't our newest member of our small village. Naruto grinned at her. Hi. I'm here to look at the bodies of the two attackers. The woman frowned at his request. That is quite an unusual request, Naruto-san. However, you did save our village, so I think we can make an exception for you. It's to your right down the hallways, third door on your left. I'll call ahead to let them know you're coming. Arigato. And with that, the blonde followed her instruction. He had to get one last glimpse at the attacker's seal. Ever since Kyubi's shocking revelation, he had been trying to understand how it was even possible, and if it could be reverted. Naruto arrived and knocked on the door. An older man, in his late 50s, opened the door. Uzumaki-san. I heard you want to have a glimpse at our two latest additions? He nodded. That's right, one of them had a seal I wished to have one last look at. The man motioned with his hand and he led them to two small metal doors and opened it. Two slabs of metal rolled out with two bodies on top, covered by a white cloth. I know you are a ninja, so I take it dead bodies aren't a problem for you? Naruto nodded at the man. I'll be alright. He turned to the bodies and slowly removed the cloth. The first one was Haidai. He took a better look at the seal, but he wasn't an expert. Reaching for a notepad, Naruto made a crude drawing of the seal before putting it away in his jacket once more. The employee backed away slightly, giving Naruto his space. Naruto swallowed nervously as he pulled the cloth down from the second body, Rigio. Images of his Rasengan slamming into the man flickered in front of his eyes. He shook his head and took a better look at Rigio. He didn't have the seal on his shoulder. That's weird, I thought they both would have the seal. Satisfied, he covered the bodies and turned back to the man. This may be a weird request, but I need to take these bodies with me. The man looked at him with a surprised look. I can't do that, these bodies belong to the families, despite the atrocities these men committed. Naruto insisted. These men were evil. And they weren't working alone. If their friends find out they have been killed here, they will attack the village again, and I don't know if I'll be able to stop them again. The man scratched his chin, mulling it over. Well, okay, but you have to do it with elegance because you can't just run around with two dead bodies. That certainly would attract a lot of unnecessary attention. I'll have to do it at night, when I leave. He thought as he glanced at the two covered bodies. I'll do it at night. Take them far away from here, making sure they'll never link them to the village. I'll leave the emergency exit unlocked so you can open it from the outside. The man pointed at the door. The young Nukenin thanked him, bowing deeply before leaving. I'm very grateful for your help. I should be thanking you, Uzumaki-san. You saved us after all. And the man returned the gesture with a bow of his own. Strolling down the street, he couldn't help but feel saddened by the entire ordeal. Yet at the same time it was for the best. Thinking he could stay here wasn't only wishful thinking but also incredibly dumb. Once the Konoha found out that his tracks led them nowhere, they would start crossing off likely places where he could be hiding. Nami no Kuni would definitely be on their list. Once this is all over, years will have passed, and their search will have stopped. I can come back here and settle down. Naruto arrived home and saw Inari just stepping out. He high-fived the kid as a greeting. What's up, Inari? Inari pouted as he shoved his hands in his pockets. Heading back to school, lunch breaks over blurg. Naruto ruffled his hair and walked past him. Well, good luck with that. I'm gonna go do some training in a bit. See you later, Nissan. Later, brat. Who you calling a brat? You're a brat too. You're the biggest brat here, and you know it. Databeo. Give it a rest. Tazuna shouted from inside the home. Naruto walked around the house, waving at Inari. Trying to get some last-minute training in. Naruto closed the door to his room and started quietly packing his most essential stuff. I can't let them know I'm leaving. They'll just try and make me stay. I have no time for that. He shoved spare clothing and extra packs of kunai and shuriken in his backpack. He had no exploding tags anymore, so he had to buy those at a later date in another village. The 12-year-old unrolled the map he purchased earlier. Looking at the map, Naruto realized he had to take a boat towards Yuno Kuno before traveling on foot into Yuki no Kuni. He had to create more distance between him and Konoha. They wouldn't dare setting a foot in Yuno Kuno. That should be my final destination, for the time being at least. After he was called for dinner, he made his way downstairs, taking place at the table where some bickering was going back and forth between Tazuna and Inari. He silently started eating his food, which consisted of katsudon and a bowl of rice. Tazun picked up on his lack of enthusiasm. Why are you all of a sudden so quiet? Are you okay? Naruto looked up and waved one of his hands dismissively. Yeah, I still feel a bit weakened from the fight. Hopefully I'll be up and running in no time. Tazuna's eyes scanned him over and nodded. Alright, I'll stop bugging you. But if you ever have the urge to talk, go to Tsunami, because I don't know how to handle that touchy stuff. He chuckled as he took a sip from his alcoholic beverage. Naruto grinned. He couldn't help but wonder if this is what it felt like to truly have a family. Ah, but old geezer. Who's going to rock me to sleep tonight if you won't? Tazumba grinned and Tsunama chuckled. Inari had images of Tazuna rocking Naruto to sleep and nearly choked on his food. Yeah, and when are you going to read him a bedtime story, huh? Inari added in, grinning like crazy. Naruto pointed with his chopsticks at the young kid. I'll let you keep that, don't want you to feel left out. Tazuna let out a bark of laughter, downing the rest of his drink in one large gulp. Naruto returned his focus on his food and ate it quickly, before helping with cleaning the table. You can go relax, Naruto-kun, go watch some TV with Tazuna and Inari. She gave him a gentle nudge to the living room, smiling at him. Naruto grinned back at her and settled himself on the couch, watching Inari and Tazuna argue about his bedtime. Naruto doesn't have a bedtime. Why can't I stay up as late as him? Because you don't kill people for a living. So if I kill people I'll get to stay up late? Tazuna snorted. Yeah, if you kill people you can stay as long up as I want. Really? Tazuna slapped Inari upside the head. Of course not. Now go do your homework. Inari grumbled and started walking towards the door. Stupid bedtime, I'm almost 9 years old, stupid homework. Naruto looked at Tsunami, whom was reading a book. I'm going to turn in as well. See ya tomorrow. Yeah, right. Tsunami looked up from her book and gave a loving smile. Good night, Naruto-kun. Tazuna winked at the blonde, another alcoholic beverage in his hands. See ya in the morning, kid. Naruto walked upstairs and decided to take a shower. He didn't know when the next time would be when he could properly shower, so he might as well make the best of it. He undressed and turned on the hot shower, patiently waiting for it to warm up. With a satisfied sigh he stepped in, scrubbing his body from tip to toe. Whilst the blonde was showering, he couldn't help feel unsure what his goals were. For now the most important thing is to keep any threats away from Nami. He shut off the shower and stepped out, drying himself before crossing the hallway and into his bedroom. There he swiftly checked his backpack one last time, double-checking if he had forgotten anything. After he was satisfied he got fully dressed and slid under the cover. He couldn't risk making any noise when he left. He couldn't risk sleeping either. The chance that he slept through the entire night was too big. Setting an alarm could wake the entire house. This is going to be hell. Why am I even doing this? 5 hours later, 2:57 a.m. Naruto rubbed his eyes for what felt like the millionth time since he went to bed. He glanced at the clock hanging on the wall above his bedroom door. No point in waiting any longer. He silently stepped out of his bed and reached for his backpack under his bed, slinging it over his shoulder. Quietly, the youngster made his way to his door and opened it, hoping that the creaking sounds wouldn't wake anyone. He stepped into the hallway and closed it, once more wincing at the noise. He tiptoed down the hall and to the stairs. The 2nd, 5th, and 8th will wake up the entire house for sure if I stand on those, so I have to make sure I skip them. With the elegance of a drunk cat he walked down the stairs, barely dodging the creaky steps. Once he was downstairs he grabbed a piece of paper and a pen from the desk in the corner, and wrote something on it, before placing it on the dinner table. He gave the letter one last glance and sadly smiled at it. Dear Tazuna, Tsunami and Inari. This wasn't the way I thought this would go, but after the fight I knew there was no other choice. I left Nami to get stronger. I can't gain the power I need if I stay here, it will slow me down too much. The 2 men who attacked weren't the only ones out there. I'm going to make sure that no one else is going to attack this village again. I wish you guys and the rest of Nami all the best. I felt more at home here this past month than I have ever had in Konoha. I hope that once I'm done I'll still be welcome in Nami no Kuni. Naruto. P.S. Databeo. He walked out the front door and sprinted to the mortuary to pick up the bodies. Luck was on his side for a change. There wasn't a soul awake and on the street, including an old man lying unconscious in the corner. He glanced to his right and saw the ramen stand. And there's another downside. After leaving Konoha and Ichiraku's, I found a decent replacement here. Now I have to leave yet again. After a couple of moments, he saw his destination and made his way around the back, noticing the door straight away. It was slightly ajar. He swiftly made his way to where the bodies were laying. He opened the metal doors and saw that the bodies were in 2 black bags. After confirming it were indeed the 2 attackers, he created 2 clones and ordered them to carry the bodies. "Why can't you help?" one asked. "Because I'm the boss. Now carry it." "So you're that kind of boss? The kind that doesn't help?" the other asked. "I'll be scouting and making sure we won't be seen. Now stop complaining and get moving," the creator hissed. "Am I really that stubborn?" His clones muttered something that sounded eerily like slave labor, but they complied nonetheless. They exited the mortuary and swiftly darted across the village. Naruto saw the gate and noted that the building next to it was already almost completely repaired. The original Naruto was the first one to exit the village, coming to a halt at the edge of the forest. Looking back one last time, he sadly smiled and gave a wave. "It's for the best." He abruptly turned and sprinted off, his clones following closely behind. 3 months later. Naruto ran, his head held low. His face was adorned with cuts and bruises. From the corner of his lip a small sliver of blood was trickling down. His clothes were a mess, cuts and tears were showing how severe the damage was. But despite that, he ran and he didn't stop. He jumped over a fallen tree, fluidly grabbing 2 kunai with exploding tags attached. He threw it towards his pursuers, whom were mere meters behind him, obscured by trees and bushes. Looking ahead, the 13-year-old blonde could see the end of a low cliff coming up. He looked to his left and right, but the cliff reached far. With no other option left, he decided upon the course that would give him the biggest chance of survival. He sprang. As he fell down, his clothes were wildly flapping about. He reached for his pouch once more, which proved more difficult than he thought it would. Finally, able in grabbing another exploding tag, the boy prepared for the impact. Fortunately for his legs, he landed in a thick bush that broke his fall considerably. He rolled out of the bush and onto his feet. The exploding tag was placed in the bushes, awaiting detonation through physical contact. The former Konoha Nin resumed his dash, ignoring the pain in his legs, placing as many trees and other objects between him and his pursuers. "This is ridiculous. They've been hunting me for 3 days. Don't they need to rest? The only reason I haven't dropped from chakra exhaustion is because of Kyubi." The ground slowly took another sharp dive and he stumbled, tumbling down the hill. Regaining his composure after a couple of seconds, he used his hands and front flipped himself back onto his feet, resuming his sprint. "I need more chakra, Kyubi! This is the last I can give you. If I give you even more, your body won't be able to handle it." Naruto grunted in response before snapping his head to the left as he heard the exploding tag burst, meaning that we're down the cliff as well. He had managed to increase the distance between them when jumping off the cliff, but it wasn't nearly as much as he had hoped. The blonde could hear something soaring towards him and quickly dove out of the way. A humongous fireball flew past him, scorching the left sleeve of his shirt. "Uzumaki Naruto, stop running and face us." A calm voice cut through the air, chilling Naruto to his core. He gritted his teeth and pushed himself to his feet. "Screw you." Resuming his flight through the forest of Kaminari no Kuni, he could feel another burst of energy erupting in his chest and knew that the Kyubi had given more of his power. He jumped over a medium-sized rock and onto one of the higher tree branches, dashing from tree to tree, rapidly increasing his speed. He reached for his pouch and quickly counted, slightly hindering his movement. 8 kunai, 4 shuriken and only 3 exploding tags left. And I'm also down to my last smoke bomb arc. I wish I hadn't listened to Itachi. "It's foolish, boy. Give up already. This running is only delaying the inevitable," a second voice said. The blonde ignored their words and continued deeper into the forest, hoping that the swamp would help him in his desperate escape attempt. Dodging another large fireball, he tried to increase his speed even more, ignoring the stabbing pain in his side. "Can't keep running from us, boy," the cold voice spoke. "You thought you could get away with the murder of our comrades?" The second one cut through the air, definitely getting closer to the young preteen. Fear coursed through his body as he threw his last smoke bomb and jumped down at the bank of a small river. He silently made his way through the river and hid behind one of the many rocks protruding from the river. "We found you, Uzumaki Naruto." Barely able to cross his arms, the blonde could do little else before an explosion engulfed him. 2 dark-clothed figures landed at the riverbank, looking at the kid's hiding spot, waiting for the smoke to clear. As the smoke slowly drifted away and thinned out, they could see a man completely dressed in a black outfit standing on the rock with Naruto draped over his shoulder. His outfit consisted of metal vambraces strapped around his wrists. He had a dark red sash around his waist and a hood that he currently had pulled back, revealing his dark ruffled hair and green eyes. The man had a smooth skin, showing his young age. He looked at the two with a smirk adorning his face. "It's him, what do we do?" one of the two asked. "We have to retreat and inform the rest that they have arrived." Understood. As soon as he said that, they disappeared in a whirl of leaves. The man dressed in black turned around and dashed away, taking Naruto with him. Hours later, in a small village on the border of Kaminari no Kuni, Naruto groggily opened his eyes. He looked around the small room he was residing in before he suddenly remembered what had happened. How the hell did I survive? Last thing I remember is the explosion. How am I even alive? They could have easily killed me. He placed his feet on the ground and stood up. Looking down at his clothes, he noticed he was wearing a white shirt with black knee-length pants. Apparently someone had changed him while he was out. The one who saved me, no doubt. He walked to the door and slowly opened it, peering into the hallway before cautiously entering it. He noticed the stairs down the corridor and silently walked down the stairs, ending up in a living room. "About time you woke up." Naruto looked towards the direction of where the voice came from. He saw a man with dark hair and green eyes, wearing a black shirt along with black pants. The man looked at him in return, seizing him up. "Who are you? Are you the one who saved me?" the blonde asked. The man took a sip from his drink and nodded. "Yep. I'm the one who saved you. The name's Hawk. Those two were hunting you for quite some time. Until they found you at Suaka village. You did kill two of their buddies, so I can't really blame them." Naruto's eyes widened in surprise. "You know who they are?" The man nodded. "Yes, I've been tracking them from a country across the sea. That land used to be a peaceful place where disputes with other countries were rarely solved through military action. Negotiations took place. Their army was worthy, no doubt about that. But they didn't experience a lot of action, they weren't like shinobi. But it all changed. They came and slaughtered everyone. No one was left alive. Men, women, and children were all slaughtered in a matter of weeks. And now they've come for us," Naruto breathlessly whispered, staring at Hawk. Hawk shook his head. "Not yet. The ones we have encountered are mere scouts. They are most likely here to gain information about the locations of all the hidden villages, as well as to assess our military strength. They've also scouted ahead to find a tear." Naruto looked dumbfounded. "A tear?" "Yes, or more accurately a chakra tear. A chakra tear appears when enormous amounts of chakra is being used in a short period of time. Or if large portions of chakra is used over time. Think of battlefields where wars used to rage. Arenas or even possibly, training grounds." Hawk stood up and opened a window, letting fresh air into the room. "These tears aren't visible to the naked eye, so very few people know of this." Naruto absorbed the new information. Then why are they looking for them if they aren't visible to us? What's so special about a chakra tear? Hawk grinned. "Glad you asked? Chakra tears allow demons to be summoned to our world." "Wa?" A wide-eyed Naruto gaped. "Like the Kyuubi?" "Similar, yes. We've always thought that this was how the nine-tailed beast came into being. These invaders want to suck demons, from who knows where, into our world." He stopped momentarily before resuming, "But that doesn't stop there. They have a way to merge their bodies with that of a demon, becoming immensely strong. How they are doing this, we don't know yet." "Then we have to stop them," Naruto shouted as he pumped his fist into the air. Hawk grinned once more. "Really? I wouldn't have thought of it. I'm glad you're here to tell me this." Naruto stuck his tongue out. "Team," Hawk continued. "As I said before, it will take quite some time before they actually arrive, so during that time we'll have to get you stronger, strong enough to go toe-to-toe with the unknowns." Naruto cheered, jumping up and down. "All right then. Let's do it." Hawk nodded. "One more thing." "Sure. Anything." "Stop shouting, it's making my ears bleed," he suddenly shouted in Naruto's face. Naruto's sweat dropped. "Then why are you shouting?" 7 years later. Flashes and explosions erupted 2 miles away from a small village, to the far west of Amigakure. The villagers looked from the edge of their village as the explosions finally died down, leaving a large cloud of smoke drifting upwards, seemingly putting an end to whatever was going on. A man dressed in blue stumbled through the smoke, gasping for air. He had metal plating on his wrists and legs, but they were heavily. Blood dripped from his hand and a deep cut crossed the man's face. A second man stood across from him, dressed in black. On his right wrist he had a metal vambrace strapped to it. His left arm, however, was covered by something black and gruesome. Red lines faintly glowed through what seemed like small scales. The man's face was hidden by a black hood and only a part was visible, the rest was covered by a face mask. Around his waist was a red sash. How has a hunter gained ability to transform into a demon? He shouted as he panted heavily, eyes wide and filled with fear. The man in black tilted his head almost unnoticeably. It's arrogance if you think your people are the only one with the ability to merge. He responded with a heavy and inhuman voice. He then disappeared and reappeared behind his opponent, sheathing his katana. Blood spurted everywhere as the man in the blue robes fell to his knees, clutching his chest. When the others arrive, you and your friends will all be slaughtered, he hissed. We'll see about that. You'll not witness your so-called slaughter. His voice slowly started reverting to a lighter tone, to that of a young man. The monstrous claw reverted back to a normal human hand, encased in a metal gauntlet. Glory to Lord Kenpachi. And with that the man slumped forward, having fought his last fight. Good job, Ghost, another voice said. Ghost turned around and saw an old friend walking up. Robatsu, it's been a while, he grasped his friend by the arm before pulling him into a hug. What are you doing here? Robatsu pulled away and crouched down next to the dead man. Looking for you. Everyone has to report in. You were difficult to track, like Waizari, so a message was out of the question. Ghost dusted himself off. Where are we supposed to meet up with the others? The inn? Robatsu gave a nod. He had long brown hair tied into ponytail. He had a single scar on his nose and thin lips, curled into a soft smile. The man couldn't be older than 25. He was wearing the same outfit as Ghost did, indicating he was part of the same organization. But whereas Ghost was wearing a gauntlet, he simply had another metal vambrace. The brown-haired man started searching through the pockets of the deceased man. After he was certain the body had nothing of worth on it, he set it ablaze with a katon jutsu. We have a week to get there, so it's best if we get going right away. Drop any jobs you got here and let's get going. Ghost nodded as he reached inside his robe and pulled out sunglasses, putting it on before letting out a near inaudible sigh of relief. Lead the way. On a boat heading for the elemental countries. A man dressed in red and black, with white stripes decorating his sleeves, knocked on a door of a seemingly random cabin. He rapped his knuckles on the door and opened it after the man inside gave his approval. Lord Kenpachi, with our current speed, the estimation of our arrival will be nearing 4 weeks. The man he was addressing this to was seated behind a desk. To say he was muscular would be an understatement. His hair was pitch black and swept back. He was wearing a long-sleeved dark red shirt along with matching pants. Draped over the back of his chair was a trench coat that was black. What was remarkable though was it lacked any sleeves. What about our scouts? Did they find any leaks? A couple, sir. Dorgan is compiling a list as we speak. It won't take long until he's finished. The subordinate never looked at him in the face and always looked down. Is there anything else I need to be aware of? The lord sitting behind the desk rarely, if ever, complimented anyone. He took it all in stride, the good and the bad, without as much as twitch. More of our scouts has been failing to report in. This is the 5th over a course of 3 months, my lord. There was a moment of silence. It doesn't matter. We've got the information we require. Notify me when the seekers arrive. Certainly, sir. With that the man left, leaving Kenpachi in his room. Kenpachi looked down at the pictures lying on his desk. They were pictures of a handful of people wearing black robes with a red sash. Names were written underneath several pictures. Name, Hawk. Gender, male. Age, unknown. Affiliation, hunters. Weapon of favor, melee or short blades. Threat level, red, borderline black. Handle with extreme care. The second he was unfamiliar with but was known to operate in the region of Amigakure and Yuki no Kuni. Name, Ghost. Gender, male. Age, unknown, young adult. Affiliation, hunters. Weapon of favor, katana. Threat level, red, borderline black. Handle with extreme care. Note: this individual appeared in the same time frame Uzumaki Naruto disappeared. All points indicate that this is indeed Uzumaki Naruto. The third file contained information on the man Kenpachi despised. Name, Rome. Gender, male. age 39. Affiliation, hunters. Weapon of favor, dual-wielding short blades. Threat level, red, borderline black. Handle with extreme care. Note: Rome is the founder of the organization known as the Hunters. Rome Kanapchi softly spoke. The man he wanted eradicated. Yet he always managed to slip his grasp. He had stalled his invasion and ensured the belief that he could be defeated. No mortal man had ever escaped his grasp when they were in combat, yet he had. And for that, he had to die. 1 week later, somewhere in Kawa no Kuni, Robatsu and Ghost walked through the gates of the small village of Tova, dusk slowly settling. Hunters were a regular occurrence in the village. Some were still put on edge because of it. Tova village and the hunters had come to an agreement after a bandit raid had threatened the existence of this small community. They were allowed residence inside the village, as long as there wasn't any trouble. In return, the inhabitants of Tova would refrain from spreading word about the whereabouts of the hunters. We should change our clothes as soon as possible. Let's head to my apartment. Robatsu spoke as he nudged with his elbow. The hunters still kept it low-key by refraining from using any of their trademark outfits inside or near the village, at least most of the time. They turned to the left and casually walked through the streets before disappearing in a puff of smoke, which went unnoticed. About 5 minutes later, Robatsu and Ghost walked through the streets. Ghost was wearing a long-sleeved black shirt with 3 buttons, of which 2 were undone. He wore matching pants along with his sunglasses to help him against the setting sun. His blonde hair that used to defy gravity slowly started hanging, but not by much. The wind blew through his hair, messing it up slightly. Robatsu wore something similar but lacked any sunglasses. He had decided to put his hair in a bun. They made their way back from where they came and soon arrived at a small square of the village. The inn was located at the far end of the square. They strode across the square softly conversing with one another. Ghost looked up and couldn't help but smile as looked at the nameplate. The Drowned Man Home Sweet Home. Robatsu grinned at him as he nodded. It's been a while, hasn't it? I haven't seen the rest in 4 years. Ghost took the first step and opened the door, walking inside, closely followed by his friend. Once inside, Ghost inhaled the smell of alcohol and tobacco. It felt good to be back. He looked around and noticed that little had changed. The large round tables were still occupied by men and women from both the village as well as weary travelers seeking respite from the rigors of their travels. He walked over to a large peculiar table, placed in the center of the inn with various people sitting around it, chatting with one another. The group looked up as they approached. There was a shuffle of feet and chairs. One by one they embraced the newcomers and patted them on their shoulders. Good to see you guys haven't changed. Ghost spoke, grinning at them. He had clipped his glasses to his shirt the moment he had entered the bar, letting his eyes adjust to the darker tone. You have Ghost. Or should I say Naruto said before being interrupted by a slap on the back of his head. Don't do that, Hawk, you know why. A man with light brown hair said as he sat back down, making room for the blonde to sit next to him. A little joke doesn't hurt anyone, Waizari. Hawk slid his arm around Ghost's shoulder, patting him on the chest. Look at you, all grown up. I remember when I saved your ass, what was it? 6 years? 7 years, actually. Speaking about change, what is that patch of hair you're sporting? Ghost jabbed back, raising his hand to attract the attention of one of the bartenders. I know what the ladies like. Hawk responded with a wink. Ghost ordered a couple dishes of sake from the bartender before returning to the bartender. Well, you always could use the advantage. Waizari and Robatsu burst out in laughter, causing the young adult to crack a smile as well. What are you guys laughing about? A female voice asked behind the trio, who in turn glanced over their shoulder. A young woman dressed in a tight-fitted dark outfit, with a matching dark red, long-sleeved, loosely fitted vest that went to below her waist. Her style of clothing accentuated her figure, causing many of the male occupants to turn their heads as she walked past. She paid it no mind as she absently played with a strand of her curly blonde hair that framed her charming face. Ghost immediately recognized her as Michiru. She was around the same age as he was, making sure Hawk doesn't let it all go to his head. He too had to admit that Michiru certainly caused his head to snap whenever she entered the room. What caused him to maintain his distance was her tendency to be overly concerned or her insistence in trying to know more about his background. Michiru smiled as she grabbed a chair and placed it between Hawk and the male blonde. How's it been going, Naruto? I haven't seen you in years. Who ordered the plate full of sake? An annoyed voice spoke up. That would be me. Ghost raised his hand before turning to the girl. I've been alright. But please don't call me by my old name. There are a lot of people who'd love to know of my whereabouts. Michiru nodded and was about to speak up again but was interrupted by a newcomer. A dark-tanned man with a shaved head walked over with the plate in his hand. He had extensive scarring to both hands and his left ear was almost completely gone. Yet the man still gave off an aura of confidence that seemed to inspire those around him. We're about to start the briefing and you really have to drink? If we have to listen to you, Rome, we'll most definitely need it. Hawk grinned at him and grabbed a dish of sake. Rome set the plate down in front of the latecomers before walking to the front of the table. By now a genjutsu had taken place around the large table. To the rest of the bar it seemed that the chatter around the table was random and of non-importance. Seeing as we've all finally arrived, let's get started, an older woman said. She had dark blonde hair, tied in a ponytail which was draped over her left shoulder. She had caring green eyes that seemed familiar to Ghost. I'm Mayu, which you all undoubtedly know. The reason we've all come together for the first time in 4 years is because of the recent developments regarding the unknowns. Ghost felt Michiru stiffen beside him. He was aware that she hadn't had any encounters with the unknowns and was primarily a support fighter with extensive healing capabilities. Our informant on the inside has managed to sneak out a message, just before they left Miraka. She reported that it would take them 2 months to arrive here. Her message got delivered last week. They are currently a mere 4 weeks away from the mainland. That is troubling. We have to warn the Haiden Six Lodges, Ripa spoke with an odd accent. The man had a large swirly tattoo covering the left side of his face that went down his neck and to his lower right arm. He was a tad bit shorter than the rest of the group and was often at the center of a joke or two, not that he seemed to mind it. To put it mildly, yeah. Robatsu added in, his face set in a grim tone. To make matters worse, they've sent an advanced shore party of 5 individuals. Their purpose is not clear, but we can make a hazard guess and say that they're here for the Big Five. Rome said, standing next to Mayu. Ghost caught on and spoke up. Who will be going? Rome looked at him for a moment before answering. We'll be creating teams of 2. 1 primary fighter and 1 support. It was then that Mayu took over, though the look on her face seemed troubled. The teams are as followed. Robatsu and Waizari, you will head for Kumogakure. Hawk and Ripa will head for Sunagakure. Ghost, you and Michiru will head for Kanahagakure. Ghost grimaced and refrained himself from slamming his fist down on the table in frustration. Seriously? And those are the teams. Take care of each other, and don't underestimate your opponent. Ghost reached for the last dish of sake and downed it, slapping Hawk's hand away in the process. I guess it's too much to ask for a swap for any of the other villages? Mayu shook her head. Sorry, Ghost. You were chosen for Konoha because of your past ties. It could give you an edge. Ghost sighed. Figures. Hawk decided to try and cheer him up. Cheer up. We get the chance to finally fight an actual unknown. Those scouts were becoming boring. Hawk, I'd rather fight scouts for another 4 years than go back to that hellhole. Why are you so happy to fight an unknown? Michiru asked as she turned the bearded man. Robatsu smirked and spoke up. That's Hawk for ya. He's always trying to find opponents to showcase his strength, even if he's weaker. Which he is. Hawk pouted. Uncool, Ghost. If I remember correctly, it was I who trained you. Pointing his thumb at himself. Partially, sure. But if you want to spar, just say the word, I'll gladly kick your ass any day. Ghost smirked and stood up. Michiru looked up at Ghost. Where are you going? To grab more alcohol. If I have to listen to Hawk for another second, I'll go crazy. He walked towards the bartender and aimed at a bottle, holding 4 fingers up. Michiru followed him with her gaze before turning to Robatsu. What's up with him? He's not how he used to be, I think. That's just Ghost. He had a difficult life. I don't think that his lone wolf style has helped with his personality either. But he's solid, so don't worry about him. Hawk responded as he followed the blonde as he made his way back from the bartender, in his hand another plate of sake. What happened to him? Rome sat down across from them. You'll have to ask him that, it's really not for us to say. Naruto sat back down. Don't stop talking about me, just because I'm here. He grabbed 2 dishes and downed them one after another. Hawk chuckled and joined in. Rome shook his head in amusement before leaning forward, grabbing one of the dishes. As the evening progressed slowly but surely, the majority of the hunters left and went to bed, leaving behind a small group of Rome, Michiru, Hawk and Ghost with Robatsu standing up to leave. He bid them a good night and went home. I've heard that they are going to start the Jonin exams in Konoha in a week. Possible tier. That makes the village a high-value target. Ghost by now had stepped over to a non-alcoholic beverage. He felt exhaustion creep in from his travels as the night grew late. Rome nodded. That's why we want you there, you know the village, its people. You two will have an edge. Ghost merely nodded as he looked at his teammate, Michiru, who was conversing with Hawk and didn't pay him any attention. Keep her safe, okay? This is her first fight, so she'll be nervous. Rome slapped Ghost on the shoulder. Don't worry, I'll bring her back, he answered before stifling a yawn. He stretched his arms and decided to call it a night. I'm going to turn in, I'll see you guys tomorrow. He let his gaze wander on Michiru for a moment longer, who in turn gave him a smile and wished him a good night's rest. Ghost walked to the bar that was near the entrance. You have a room available? The bartender behind the bar nodded. We do, it will be 120 real for one night, with a discount if you book a room for a week or longer. Just for one night. Ghost responded as he handed the man the required amount of money before receiving the key to his room. The majority of their group stood outside the village on the path that would eventually lead them across roads. All the assigned teams were fully decked out in their trademark outfits, one that recognized them as the mercenary group, the Hunters. Mayu stepped forward. I wish you all the best of luck in your fight against our enemy. However, remember that the protection of the innocent is your top priority. Of course, Mayu. I guess we'll see you all soon. Take care, Robatsa said, turning around and sprinting away, his teammate following closely behind him. Hawk grinned and followed them, with Raipa dashing alongside him. Michiru? Be careful, okay? Mayu asked concernedly before she embraced the girl in a hug before she reluctantly let go. Are you ready? Ghost asked as he slightly adjusted the gauntlet on his hand. Michiru nodded nervously. Let's do this. Ghost, take care of Michiru, okay? Mayu asked as she stepped away from the blonde girl. Ghost in return nodded at her. Don't worry, she'll be fine. He turned around and dashed off. Michiru gave one last wave before following in his footsteps. They dashed through the forest, silently for a couple of hours, with the occasional small talk, but otherwise they kept quiet. Ghost glanced at the attractive girl and he could easily see that she was incredibly nervous and full of doubt. Hey, Michiru. She turned her eyes on him with a questioning look. When we do find the unknown, leave the fight to me, okay? I know you're nervous about this whole thing, so I just want you to lay back and watch closely. Make sure no one from Konoha interferes. Are you sure you don't need my help? Naruto winked at her. You can patch me up afterwards. He slightly slowed his pace to a more comfortable speed. I know that you've been having second thoughts about your abilities. You're a hunter, so by definition that already makes you better than most shinobi in your area of expertise. Or as Hawk would say, don't worry so much. Michiru smiled at her teammate and nodded, her worries slightly appeased. As they continued their trek towards Hi-no-Kuni, they decided to stop when evening fell. Setting up camp. Michiru was preparing some food and decided to poke Ghost with a stick she had found lying around. You know, if you really want to be as incognito as possible, we might want to adjust our outfit a slight bit. Naruto looked up from the papers that would grant them entry to Konoha, his hair ruffled with the abrupt movement. What do you have in mind? She turned to her bag and pulled out 2 dark blue cloaks that completely covered their outfits when she put it on. Our hunter outfit is intimidating and attracts attention. While that is great for most cases, right now we should focus on being as inconspicuous as possible, don't you think? Ghost realized that he would have to remove the hood and the face mask as well. The problem is my hair, it's a dead giveaway. I could henge it, but I'm worried they would see through it. Michiru grinned at the blonde. I got just the thing. Holding her hands out, she revealed hair dye. Naruto muttered something foul under his breath. What was that? Nothing. A couple of days later, Fire Country. Ghost and Michiru slowly walked down the path that led to the gates of Konohagakure. I've ignored Hi-no-Kuni ever since I left. Now I'm returning to the very place that tried to take everything away from me. Why am I even doing this? These bastards don't deserve it. They closed in on the gates and made sure that their headbands were clearly visible. Rome had somehow gotten his hands on legitimate papers and headbands from Amigakure, along with the promise that they would be registered as visitors for the exams. Ghost had to admit, with their added cloaks, they definitely looked like AIM shinobi. Whatever you do, don't reveal my old name, alright? Ghost whispered in Michiru's ear as they walked through the gate and headed to the check-in post, absently letting a hand slide through his newly colored brown hair. I won't, I promise. She nodded and followed him towards the small building. We're here for the finals of the Jonin exams. Ghost spoke to the two Chunin sitting there. What are your names? Oridoki Ghost, my companion is. Michiru Haddle Ghost then handed their files and waited patiently, hoping that Rome made good on his promise. After a moment of silence, the Chunin gave the papers back and smiled at them. Your papers check out. I hope you'll enjoy your stay in Kanahagakure. Have fun watching the exams. I heard your colleagues performed very well in the second stage. I'll be looking forward to them in the finals. Thank you. We'll be surely rooting for them. Michiru chipped in and smiled at the two, melting their hearts. As they walked down the street, stores and homes on either side of the road, Michiru couldn't help but notice that Ghost was still wearing his glasses and quirked an eyebrow. Why are you wearing sunglasses? It's not that sunny. Naruto slightly turned to her. That's because my eyes hurt because of daylight. Why? Naruto was about to speak up when they heard a voice erupting from the crowd. Delicious takeaway ramen. Especially made for the festivities. Try it now for only 4 ryo. I have to get some of that now. Naruto slipped through various passerbys and came to a halt in front of the trader. 2 please. Michiru looked at him. So, this is your weakness? That and gorgeous women, so watch it. He answered with a chuckle. He paid the trader and turned to her, handing her a cup, ignoring her laughter. It however became abundantly clear that this wasn't his weakness after all. Ghost made a face that indicating his extreme displeasure with the food and instantly threw it away. This is absolute garbage. Michiru took a bite. This isn't all that bad. But Ghost wouldn't hear any of it and grabbed the cup from her hand, depositing it in a bin. We're going to the only place in this dump that actually makes some good food. He guided her to the one place he had actual fond memories of. Welcome to Ichiraku's Ramen, can I take your order? I smiled at the duo as they took their seat. I want the Shio ramen, Ghost casually said, trying to ignore the explosion of memories that were brought on by the simple ramen stand. I'll take the miso ramen. I dotted down the order. Coming right up. Michiru turned to Ghost. Ichiraku's? Doesn't look all that fantastic to be honest. The temporary brown-haired teammate absently played with his chopsticks. Memories of the village was flooding his mind. It made him feel nostalgic and at the same time homesick, which was odd, seeing as he never got treated as an inhabitant of Konoha. Ghost? It's great. He mumbled absently. Michiru looked at him, wondering what was going on. It's probably because this used to be his hometown. Can't have been easy. She frowned and glanced over her shoulder towards the street, where shinobi and civilians alike were walking about. Came back and they ate their ramen in silence. After they were done they resumed their trek through the village. What hotel should we pick? Let's just take that one over there. He pointed at the hotel on the corner of the street, and they walked straight over. Welcome, how can I be of service? Michiru decided to take the lead. We'd like to book a room for the entire week. Would you like a shared bed, or 2 separate ones? Separate please. Michiru glanced at her teammate, but he was staring out the front window. Here are the keys, you can pay half now, and half upon departing. Michiru paid the required amount, and received the key. Ghost, let's go. Michiru gave him a nudge, and he snapped out of thoughts. Ghost followed Michiru to their room and couldn't help but let out a sigh of relief as she closed the door. Are you okay? She walked over and tried to remove his cloak, but he shrugged her off. I'll be fine, I'm merely adjusting. He removed his cloak and dumped it on a chair. He then proceeded to remove the outer layer of his outfit, leaving him in a tight-fitted black shirt. He kicked off his shoes and let himself fall on one of the beds, his eyes already closed. Ghost awoke later that evening only to find that Michiru was nowhere to be found. I do hope she doesn't do anything stupid. He looked in a mirror and decided that without the outer garment of his hunter's outfit it was inconspicuous enough. He stepped out deciding he needed a drink. He stepped out the front door of the hotel, and noticed that night had fallen, clipping the glasses on his shirt. He aimlessly walked down the street, until he found what he was looking for. The blonde entered the bar and noticed it was crowded but not stacked to the brim with shinobi. He walked to the back and sat down on a bar stool situated against the bar itself. Visitors from AIM. We don't get your kind here often. Often enough, Ghost muttered, holding up 4 fingers before tapping on the wood. Give me your best sake. The bartender obliged and pulled 4 dishes and filled them with his best sake. Enjoy, stranger. As Ghost downed the first drink, he gave the entire place a look over. It was clear that it was a bar that was primarily visited by shinobi. That said, it wasn't exclusive for shinobi. He could see civilians standing in small group around, keeping to themselves. From the corner of his eyes he saw someone sitting down next to him. He turned his gaze slightly before freezing. Sitting next to him was Irika Yumino, his old sensei. Time seemed to slow down as he watched from the corner of his eyes as his former teacher ordered a drink. Got to relax, if I stay like this I'll attract attention. I'm in a bar for shinobi for Kami's sake. He slowly exhaled and grabbed his second dish, slowly bringing it to his lips and letting the beverage slide down his throat. Troublesome patrol Ino's going to kill me when she finds out I didn't go straight home. Irika chuckled. Better than having a bunch of kids tell you they know better and that I'm wrong. The new generation of upcoming genin are something else. Naruto once more widened his eyes in surprise. Shikamaru, really? Of all the people, it's gotta be the guy with an IQ of 9,000. He dared to look to his left and took in the features of Irika. The Chunin teacher hadn't changed all that much. He had small wisps of gray hair starting at his temple and his eyes seemed more refined and older. Shikamaru, on the other hand, still had that lazy look in his eyes, but the last 7 years had certainly matured him. He was wearing a jonin vest and was smoking a cigarette from the corner of his mouth. Ghost couldn't resist a snort. One which didn't go unnoticed. What's funny about what I said? Irika asked, dragging the former blonde into the conversation. Ghost quirked an eyebrow. Irika had been one of the prime examples of betrayal in his eyes. The man hadn't done anything to help with the punishment, just like Shikamaru. If you can't teach a bunch of brats to show some respect, you certainly aren't deserving of any. Irika looked taken aback by the harsh comment and narrowed his eyes slightly. You don't even know these kids or me, Aimnin. Ghost shook his head, reaching for the third dish, emptying its content down his throat. From what I can tell, you're Chunin, at the least. If the brats are unwilling, punish them accordingly. In AIM, disrespecting our teacher is met with physical punishments, and if that doesn't help, they're kicked off the program. Konoha must have grown weak if they allow such behavior to go unchecked, or perhaps the teachers are just worthless. Ghost blatantly lied, but he didn't care. He just wanted to hurt the man beside him. How about you remember where you are currently residing in, stranger? We allow your stay here, but that can just as easily be taken away. Shikamaru butted in, a serious look on his face. How about you shut you dash? Ghost started but was cut off by a drunk Konoha Chunin who dragged him off the bar stool and onto the floor. You don't speak to us like that, he drawled in a near incomprehensible manner. Irika wanted to help the Aimnin up, but before he could, the man had already dashed forward and slammed his body into the drunk, causing them both to tumble to the ground. Ghost was about to slam his fist into his intoxicated opponent when it got grabbed by none other than Asuma Sarutobi. He got flung backwards and slammed into a table. He instantly got up, eyes ablaze with hatred. Identify yourself, Asuma demanded as he stood in front of supposed AIM shinobi. Ghost clenched his teeth. He knew that if it came to a fight he could easily take Asuma. But that wasn't the problem. The problem was the entire bar that had now surrounded the two, and it seemed that they weren't keen on letting him slap around one of their most respected jonin. He slowly exhaled and straightened himself. At least he tried to, until he got shoved back down by another random. Stay down, he demanded before roaring in laughter. Ghost tried to stay calm, but he felt his anger slipping and he stood up, and the first one to drop to the floor was the guy who had shoved him. At first, he wanted to slam his fist into the guy's face, but instead he opted for a low sweep with his leg, which turned out to be just as effective. He pointed his finger at Asuma, who had stepped forward after his counter. You! If you ever touch me again, I swear it's the last thing you'll ever do. Asuma tilted his head forward. It seemed that anger was something he had in spades now too. You visit our village under a banner of peace. You attack 2 Konoha's shinobi and threaten me. Who do you think you are, punk? Irika at this point butted in. Asuma-san, please calm down. We were having a discussion with him, and the drunk Chunin attacked first. Asuma turned sideways at the drunk Chunin, who was swaying from side to side. Is this true? He insulted Irika. The guy hiccuped and then tried to throw his glass at the brown-haired AIM shinobi. He didn't get far as Asuma grabbed the glass and tore it out of his grip. You disrespect the name of Konoha shinobi everywhere. Go home. Asuma turned back to Ghost, who had crossed his arms. He strode over and looked at the man. I acted hastily and perhaps too harsh. I apologize. The temptation to smash his fist in Asuma's face was immense. He glanced around and noticed that by now the crowd had dissolved or had returned to their drinks. I know who you are, Sarutobi-san. And it's because of the respect I had for your father that I'll let this go. Ghost walked past the man and back to the bar. I'm incredibly sorry for what happened. Please have a drink on me. Iruka spoke as he offered the man his hand. Ghost strode past him as well, reached for his last dish of sake and downed it. He looked at Shikamaru, whom in return was looking at him with a calculated gaze. What are you looking at? I know you from somewhere, I just can't seem to place it. Ghost took that as his immediate cue to leave, and quickly. He swiftly left the bar and back to the hotel. To say that going to the bar was a mistake is one big fucking understatement. He entered the hotel room and heard someone in the shower. Michiru? Hey, Ghost. I stepped out to get myself orientated with the village. When I came back, I saw you were gone, she called from the shower. Ghost slumped back onto his bed. I was mingling with the locals. Ghost and Michiru had wandered through the street looking for their target for the better part of 3 days. So far, they had come up with nothing, and Ghost was starting to suspect that they would most likely have to wait until the actual exam. That was until they rounded a corner and took a shortcut that led them through an alleyway. They softly conversed to one another until Ghost stopped dead in his track. Ghost? Leaning against a tree was a man with red robes and metal plating attached to his wrist, legs, and shoulder. He had dark brown hair which was cut relatively short. Ghost looked at the man, taking in his features. The man dressed in red looked back. What are you looking at? You, the hunter replied. The descriptions match, this has to be him. And why are you? The man stopped mid-sentence as he came to a realization and smiled. You two must be hunters then, how very interesting. You have certainly become an annoyance to our plans. We aim to please. Ghost looked around and noticed no immediate Konohanin, not that it would last very long. What's your name, Hunter? And what of the other? Does she even speak, or is she afraid? Michiru stepped forward, eyes narrowed. Afraid of you? We outmatch you 2-1, your fleet is still weeks away. Ghost let his hand slowly wander to his katana before abruptly turning, letting a kunai fly from his hand. His kunai got deflected by a woman with black hair tied in a bun. She wore the same outfit and seemed to be around 26. So, there are two of you, interesting. The women leaned against a building. Hunters? What are they doing here, Ryodora? Ryodora shrugged. I don't know, Sia, we didn't get to that part yet. But that doesn't matter, you know our orders. Kill anyone who stands in our way. Ghost vanished and appeared next to Sia, grabbing her by the side of her head and slammed it into building she was leaning against. The hunter vanished once more and appeared beside Ryodora, this time slamming his knee in his opponent's stomach, causing him to bend over in pain. You know how to use flash step? Sia growled as she regained her composure and charged forward. Michiru in the meanwhile was hesitant about how she would react. I can't let Ghost fight on his own. He needs my help. Ghost grabbed Ryodora by his wrist and threw him into the charging woman, unsheathing his katana whilst doing so. The two unknowns slammed into each other and fell in a heap to the ground. They instantly recovered and was about to charge once more until they were forcefully reminded that there were two hunters. Michiru came flying in from the side and planted both her feet in Sia's face, crashing her straight through the back of the same building she was slammed in moments earlier. Ghost nodded his approval and charged Ryodora, who had unsheathed his own blade. The two met and clashed blades, until Ryodora gained the upper hand and overpowered the hunter. He followed up with a hard blow to Ghost's face, who jumped back to recover himself. What's your name, Hunter? Ghost smirked at him, wiping the blood off the corner of his mouth. The name's Ghost. He glanced over the shoulder and saw that Sia had recovered herself and was now charging the petite blonde, who in return held two kunai in a defensive posture. He used flash step once more and appeared beside Michiru, holding out his hand. But before he could finish his sentence, his hand got grabbed by another. What? He snapped his gaze to his left and took a sharp intake of breath. Standing beside him, preventing him from performing his jutsu, was none other than Kakashi Hatake. He lowered his hand and glared at the silver-haired jonin. He turned his attention to Sia and Ryodora, whom were being restricted by 3 other Konoha shinobi. That's... What's going on here? A young man with raven hair demanded as he stood in front of Ryodora. He had roughly the same height as him and still had the same hairstyle he had back in the day. His outfit consisted of a standard-issue jonin vest with underneath a black shirt and black pants. Sasuke Uchiha Ghost sneered at him before abruptly snapping his head to one of the other Konohanin. Standing there was Sakura Haruno. The years had changed her appearance a bit. She still had her hair short, but the edges were now ruffled and a bit messy, making her look more like a shinobi, rather than a girl who spent half her time wasting on her hair and makeup. He asked a question, name Nin? Kakashi said as he released his grip on Ghost. Ghost glanced to the last shinobi and saw that he was undoubtedly his replacement. He had his hair similar to his, slightly spiky but more slick to the back. He had dark green eyes and smirk plastered on his face. Mason, we were merely sparring with one another, but it got out of control. Sia bowed in an apologetic manner. Kakashi turned his gaze to Ryodora. You know the rules. Fighting isn't allowed. Ryodora snapped his eyes to Kakashi. I'm sorry it got out of hand. If you want to reprimand me, I completely understand. We merely forgot. That mistake caused severe structural damage to a building. The unknown Konoha Nin snapped back. What about you two? You aren't participants? Sakura asked, turning her focus back on the two incognito hunters. He just said that we were sparring. Is there something wrong with your hearing, Kunoichi? Ghost grumbled. This is just great. What is this? A whole fucking reunion? Be more respectful towards Konoha Shinobi, stranger. His supposed replacement barked. Respect is not given freely, it's earned, and that pink-haired monstrosity certainly hasn't earned it. The hunter barked right back. Ryodora turned to leave, Sia following in his footsteps. It fun while it lasted, Hunter Ghost. I hope we'll meet again. Michiru looked at her companion, who merely smirked. I doubt you'll like what the outcome will be. He gave one last glance at Sia, narrowing his eyes. The two disappeared from his sight and he turned to leave. Come on, let's get some food, Michiru. Kakashi held up his hand, blocking the way. I haven't said you could leave yet. Who are you, and what's your purpose in Konohagakure? Ghost rubbed his forehead in frustration. My name's Oridoki Ghost, he then pointed at his partner. Hers is Michiru Hattle. We're here to watch the finals of the exam. Liar, Sasuke scoffed as he stood next to Kakashi. Ghost technically wasn't lying. He was merely skimping on the other part of his purpose. Hataki, why don't you keep your pet on a leash? It's unbecoming of Konoha Nin to make accusations when they are wholeheartedly untrue. Wait, you're the one who has caused all that ruckus last night. The replacement spoke as he aimed his finger at Ghost. Wait, you did what? Michiru asked, quirking an eyebrow. If you mean that I was attacked by your compadres for having discussion, then, yeah, I caused a ruckus last night. Stealing one of Hawk's most used terms. Are we free to leave? Michiru asked politely, knowing that harsh words would get them nowhere. Kakashi's eye settled upon the attractive blonde. Ghost could already imagine the mind of Hataki thinking at the speed of light. First, you'll be paying for the damage you have created to the building. Michiru reached inside her cloak and pulled out a checkbook. She scribbled something down and handed it to the jonin, whilst the former blonde was mumbling on the background. Something about the unfairness of it all. Ghost glanced to his right and noticed the kunai he had thrown earlier, and before he could walk over and pick it up, Sasuke had already strolled over and reached for it. He momentarily looked at it before leisurely strolling over to the hunter and handed it to him. You showed some capable moves, but it's nothing to boast about. We'd have you flat on the ground in the blink of an eye. Oridoki Ghost let the kunai twirl around his fingers. Your brother certainly doesn't think so. Everyone froze and turned to him. Sasuke was the first to speak up, his eyes narrowed and his jaw set. You've met with Itachi? Kakashi shoved the piece of paper in his breast pocket and turned to the two. If you know where Itachi Uchiha is, you should tell us. There's a big reward for the one who gives us crucial information about his whereabouts. Ghost glanced at Michiru before turning his attention fully to copying. Well, that surely is convenient. You are in need of information, and I'm in need of that check you just pocketed. Without hesitation, Kakashi pulled it back from his vest and held it out. But before the former blonde could grasp it, he pulled it back, holding it out of the reach of Oridoki. I spoke to him in Oto no Kuni. Ghost merely said, still holding out his hand. The copy nin handed him the piece of paper, his head tilted slightly in curiosity. Where exactly and how long ago? Ghost tore the check to piece. It was in Otogekure 3 years ago. 3 years? What good will do that? He's long gone by now. Sakura exclaimed. A deal's a deal, Hataki. Michiru, let's get going. If I'm going to stay here for a moment longer, I might just kill myself. The rude aim nin left behind a fuming Sasuke and an intrigued Kakashi. Sakura and Ritu just looked on with a combination of anger and surprise. Michiru and the brown-haired missing nin from Konoha sat down at a table on a terrace overlooking the market square. You really should play along, Ghost. It will help us in the long run. He merely shrugged and took a sip from his drinking, his eyes soaking in everything there was to see. Konoha had changed little since his departure. It still had its low wooden buildings that didn't go higher than a 3-story building. The difference for him was that people didn't look at him in disgust. Surely, they were weary of him, but that was due to his affiliation with AIM, or so it appeared for them at least. We'll be gone from here soon, don't see the point in playing nice with these tree huggers. Michiru sighed, a small smile appearing on her face. You've changed since I last saw you. Oridoki turned his gaze the other way, looking slightly uncomfortable. It's been 5 years since we last spoke, Michiru. What happened in those 5 years? Mister? What's going on? Ghost? She placed a hand on his arm and gently shook it, snapping him out of his thoughts. I'm good. He let out a single cough before focusing his attention on his food, taking a bite from it. Michiru decided to ignore his strange behavior, and instead reached for the chopsticks and started inhaling her noodles. So I must say, that kick you gave Sia was impressive. You waited for an opening and abused it. Her teammate started. She hesitated. I got lucky. In a straight-up fight I don't know if I'll be able to handle her. Don't worry, I can handle them both. You make sure that the moment Konoha arrives you keep them back. He took one last bite from his food before he set it aside. You don't even have to fight them, just keep Konoha away from us. Are you sure you can take them both on? They didn't look like pushovers to me. She looked down at her hands, unsure what to do. Ghost waved with his hand dismissively while giving her a grin. I got some tricks up my sleeve. You do your part, I'll do mine. I promised I'd keep you safe, and I will. Michiru looked at him, and actually took in his features. The man sitting in front of her had brown hair slightly spiky but gravity slightly pulled it down. He had no markings on his face, completely unblemished. His blue eyes almost seemed to glow and held determination in them, not a shred of doubt crossed his mind. He's certainly attractive, I can't deny that, but he's got a presence that is very calming and yet at the same time intimidating. You sure you don't want to take a picture? A smirk crawling on his face. A small blush appeared on her face and quickly looked away. Don't get any funny ideas. His smirk turned into a chuckle. I wouldn't dream of it, Mrs. Haddle. In return she threw one of her chopsticks at him, hitting him square in the face. As the afternoon slowly turned into the evening, Ghost found himself in front of a familiar building. The building in front of him had been completely remodeled and looked like something that fit just right in the village. Very interesting that when I lived here, the landlord wasn't in the slightest interested in cleaning this place up. The moment I leave it's all suddenly changed. Fuck this place. He walked past it and glanced at the Hokage monument, the head of the Yondaime. He had spent hours sitting on top of the man's head, pondering just who his parents were. Only to realize he had been sitting atop it all that time. To think that he placed his own kid in such a situation. This village is messed up. He turned around and walked back to the hotel. Tomorrow would be the finals of the exam. He knew that Ryodora and Sia would most likely strike then, inflict massive casualties along the way. What better way to do that when thousands upon thousands were watching? His priority was clear. Kill them before they merged with the demon. If he failed to do that, he should most likely have to trigger his own powers. I'd rather not do that, though Michiru would have a difficult time to understanding. He walked up the stairs and towards his hotel room. Glancing at the clock on the wall, he realized with surprise that it was already close to midnight, and that he had let his mind wander for far too long. Entering the room, he already noticed that Michiru was fast asleep. He tiptoed past her bed and slowly pulled off his clothes. He gave her a glance and a soft smile tucked on his face that quickly turned into a frown. I should have done this alone. She isn't ready to face these opponents yet, but then again, in about 3 weeks all that doesn't matter anymore, so maybe this will do her some good. He slid in bed and let his weariness consume him. Ripa and Hawk nodded at one another as they dashed towards their opponent Syks. He was wearing a red cloak and had a big battle axe in his hands, befitting of a man his size. Hawk was the first to attack. He formed a series of hand signs. Katon, Gokake no Jutsu. A large fireball blasted towards the unknown, and helped his hands in an attempt to block it. Now Ripa. Ripa made a circular movement with his hand before drawing it back and pumping it back forward. A long narrow bolt of lightning erupted from his hand and dashed forward. Syks saw the attack coming and removed one hand from the Katon attack and tried to block this attack as well. Ripa smirked and knew that this would turn the battle in their favor. Instead of blocking the attack, the bolt snapped straight through his hand and pierced the left side of his chest. With a roar of pain, Syks fell to one knee. With another, But this time, determined roar, he ignored the pain and used both hands to push the Katon Jutsu aside, ramming into a nearby boulder. Heavily panting, the unknown stood back up and charged Ripa, who grabbed his blades that were stabbed into the ground and met his attacker head-on. He performed an overhead, downward slash with both blades, but SYKS blocked it with his own weapon. He pirouetted, effectively pushing Ripa aside and blocking Hawk's own incoming kunai. Before the man could counter with his axe, Ripa had already planted his feet in the back of SYKS, who stumbled forward, straight into Hawk. "Come to daddy!" Hawk shouted, a triumphant smile on his face. He rammed a kunai into the throat of his seemingly unstoppable foe. With a grunt, he tore open the man's throat and let the blood-soaked kunai fall into the sand. Six mouthed something as his legs started to give out. With one last grunt, he swung his axe, but Hawk saw it coming and dodged it. "Nice try, big guy, but you're done. Say hello to your friends down below." Hawk walked past the dying man and stood next to Ripa. All in all, they had some minor wounds, but that was well worth the price. "You okay, Ripa?" The man with the odd accent nodded. "Nothing serious, let's go home, yes?" Hawk nudged with his head, and they managed with a steady pace to leave the desert of Suna and into the forest, where the temperature was noticeably different. Oridoki, Ghost, and Michiru Hada walked to the stadium, surrounded by hundreds of other people, intent on watching the finals with great interest. The Jonin exam were apparently similar to that of the Chunin, but in this case they had to showcase strength. With the Chunin exam, you had to show the wit and intelligence necessary for that of a Chunin. These matches would come down to a simple yet fitting brutal one-on-one fight. Everyone had the chance to become Jonin, if they showed that they had the capabilities befitting of that rank. He saw Michiru fidgeting with her nails, picking at it. Doubt and worry were clearly visible on her face. He reached for her hands and softly squeezed. She looked at him and returned the gesture. "How are you not freaking out right now?" "Who says I'm not freaking out?" Ghost entered the arena, letting Michiru go through first. Beforehand they had stashed all their weapons in two scrolls, whom Michiru then hid inside the sleeves of her shirt. They also knew that Chunin would be thoroughly checking for any illegal substances or weapons. After the disastrous Chunin exam that happened all those years ago, they decided not to take any chances. The downside to the security measures were the males in the detachment. Michiru merely twirled the scrolls around her sleeve, layered with a small but effective genjutsu. Along with an alluring smile, she managed to sneak the scrolls in easily, with the eyes of the Chunin still on her retreating figure. Ahem. The Chunin snapped his attention back to the next person, which just so happened to be Ghost. After Ghost was allowed through, he met up with Michiru, who discreetly handed him the scroll. Ghost took the lead and led them up a set of stairs, packed with other visitors whom were excitedly talking about the upcoming fights. Once they reached the top of the stairs, they took a left and walked back into the open air. In front of them were rows upon rows of stairs. Looking down upon the fighting pit, they could see that they were on the very top of the arena. And to make it even better, they were right next to the participation lounge, which was separated by a waist-high wall. A couple of the Chunin whom were going to be fighting soon were chatting with one another or talking to their friends, seated right next to the lounge, where the hunters were situated. Looking on the scoreboard, he could see that Sakura Haruno and Yaretsuka were the first contestants that would be fighting. So, Sakura hasn't even made Jonin yet pitiful. "When do you think they will strike?" Michiru softly asked as she sat down in their designated seats. Ghost focused a small amount chakra on his eyes until they glowed red. Luckily for him, this went unnoticed as his sunglasses obscured it. He could easily make out the dark chakra that flowed around the chakra tear. It looked like the ground had broken open and tiny amounts of chakra poured in. "It's close. I think that 1 or 2 chakra-induced fights will reach its breaking point. They will use a technique to tear it open. From there, the demon that comes through will latch itself to the nearest person with the biggest amount of chakra." "Cammy, this is crazy," Michiru whispered, barely able to restrain her voice. "Don't worry, it sounds crazier than it actually is." The hunter glanced over his shoulder to the booth the participants were in. The two unknowns had just walked in. "2 things. First, I have some extra tricks up my sleeves that will even the odds should one of them merge with a demon. If that happens, I want you to trust me, okay?" "What kind of tricks?" she asked, locking her eyes with his. "Just trust me, okay?" She started fidgeting with her nails once more but nodded nonetheless. "What's the other thing?" Giving one last glance at the newly arrived duo, he turned his attention to Michiru once more. "If it should look like I'm about to lose, I want you flee dash." Cheers and shouting erupted from the crowd as the first 2 contestants appeared down on the field. "I want you to make for Tuva and warn the others, okay?" Michiru looked shocked. "What? No. We do this together. Ghost narrowed his eyes, once more grabbing her hands to stop her from fidgeting. This isn't up for debate. If I fall, then that means that you'll be next, and I doubt you would be able to stop them both. You even said so yourself. Live to fight another day, alright? Michiru wanted to argue, but he merely shook his head and stood up. Don't worry, alright? It's just a contingency. He walked towards the contestants' lounge and hopped over, walking towards Ryodora. Ma Aradoki-san, you know that's against the rules, right? A voice behind him said. Ghost turned around and saw Kakashi standing in the corner, the shadow obscuring him for the most part. Copy Nin. I doubt you're a participant. Sakura certainly knows where to hit a guy where it hurts. The announcer shouted as he continues to highlight the fight. Neither are you, yet here you are, breaking the rules once again. I begin to suspect that you're not here for the finals. Kakashi snapped his book shut and walked over. Actually, I am. I know who you are. You're not from Amigekure. You're the ghost that caused the Irosa massacre. Ghost sighed. And how did you find that out? It wasn't hard to figure out, really. You can change the color of your hair and wear a cloak, but you fit the description. So, what are you going to do about it? Kakashi looked at the ceiling for a couple of moments, seemingly thinking about his. Well, I was planning on detaining you, but I have a feeling you wouldn't go down quietly, so I'd most likely just kill you. Ghost quirked an eyebrow, not even in the slightest worried. Well, rest assured that I'm not here to destroy your village or kill its inhabitants. Sakura advances to the next round. Niera is knocked out of the finals. Then, what are you here for? Will Kiba Inuzuka and Bokutusa please come down? Your match is about to begin. Another wave of cheers erupted from the crowd. Ghost glanced over the shoulder and saw Michiru worriedly looking at him. He winked at her in the hopes to ease her mind. Hitaki, I'm actually here to save your dash. Ghost snapped his attention to Ryodora as he suddenly strode towards the edge of the balcony. He instantly poured chakra into his eyes and noticed that the chakra tier was at its breaking point. He saw Ryodora and Sia jump over the edge, much to the surprise of the other attendants. Ghost fully twirled around and started sprinting after the two, pushing two contestants roughly aside who stood in the way. Michiru! He shouted over his shoulder, not even sparing a glance. It's time! Hey! Watch it, punk! Ghost, what are you doing? Kakashi shouted after him, but to no avail. The blonde undid the knot that held his cloak together, and in one fluid motion as he vaulted over the edge while the brown cloth came loose and caught wind, momentarily floating before dropping on the ground in. Ghost used the momentum of his vault to slide at a ridiculous high speed down the wall. His dark hunter's outfit rippled as the wind slammed into him. Michiru looked down from above and saw her teammates sliding down with grace. He's absolutely crazy. She knew what she needed to do and sprinted across and dived into lounge, preventing Kakashi and the other Konoha shinobi from interfering. Listen up. I'm Michiru-san from the organization called the Hunters. We're here to prevent a tragedy from happening. I must implore you to wait until my partner's done. Sasuke flickered into existence next to Kakashi. What nonsense is this? I assure you, this is in the best interest of your village. Michiru glanced over the edge and down to the pit, seeing her teammate about to face off with two unknowns. As Ghost rapidly closed in on the ground, he quickly looked around and saw that Ryodora and Sia were already casually walking over, ignoring the shouts from both the fighters and Shikamaru, whom was the Jonin in charge of the finals. With only mere meters away from the ground, Ghost used his ability, Flash Step, to appear on the ground, looking only ruffled due to the wind. Glad to see you could join us, Ghost. Looking ahead, he saw both Ryodora and Sia smiling at him. If you think I'm going to allow you to merge with that beast, you're sorely mistaken. He could hear the sound of air being displaced, and he saw Sia standing behind him. But before he could react to it, someone else spoke up. What do you think you're doing? This is my fight, go bother someone else. None other than Kiba growled in frustration. Whilst Kiba hadn't changed all that much, his dog certainly had. It had grown to the size of a small horse, growling its teeth at the trio. Team, for your sake flee while you can. Kiba glanced at Shikamaru, and he himself was already preparing his trademark Kageme no Jutsu. Ghost witnessed the same thing and knew that he had to take care of the Nara first. He dashed forward, and before Kiba or the unknowns could intervene, he had grabbed Shikamaru's arm, twisted it, and then threw Shikamaru into the stands. You'll pay for that! Kiba roared as he charged the hunter. Ghost in turn glanced at the deadly duo, whom paid him no mind, and proceeded towards the tier. Fuck! This is precious time I'm wasting. He abruptly turned to Kiba. Using Flash Step, the hunter appeared next to him and rammed his elbow against the Inuzuka's temple, who instantly smacked to the ground, shaking his head as he tried to comprehend what just happened. Ghost didn't allow him any reprieve and imitated his earlier move by grabbing Kiba and snapping the bone inside his wrist. But before he could throw Kiba into the stands, he retaliated. A claw shot up and tried to pierce his throat. Ghost jerked his head to the side and the clawed hand of Kiba snapped past his face. Enough! You're wasting my time! The former blonde roared and grabbed Kiba by the throat with his gauntlet. He started with a knee in the man's solar plexus and continued with a barrage of fists that battered his face almost beyond recognition. Ghost turned and threw the Inuzuka into the incoming hound. Pathetic. The hunter extended his hand and let out a burst of pure chakra. Chakra push. It collided with the two figures and they too got slammed into the stands. You aren't even capable of killing! Sia roared as she came charging in, her blade held high above her head. Ghost in return quickly unsheathed his own katana and met her straight on, blocking her downward swing with a horizontal block. He kicked her away and stuck his katana in the sand before weaving through a couple of hand signs. Katan, Hozenka no Jutsu. A series of small fireballs roared towards Ryodora, whom was forced to use Flash Step, reappearing on the top floor of the arena stands. The hunter instantly locked his eyes on the figure and mimicked his foe's ability, appearing right next to him. He grabbed the unknown by his face with his gauntlet hand, throwing him into the wall behind the audience, whom were cowering in their seat, hoping not to get caught in the crossfire. Michiru meanwhile had seen the exchange and turned her attention back to Kakashi. You need to tell your Hokage that she has to call off her ninja. Ghost can handle it. Your friend just attacked Kiba and Shikamaru, Sakura exclaimed, waving her hand towards the two downed comrades. They were about to attack him. You saw that he could easily have killed them, but he didn't. We're here purely for those two. What kind of threat do they pose to our village? Michiru hesitated. She knew that telling them the entire story wouldn't be received well. They have an ability to summon a creature that will try to slaughter anyone in its sight. What kind of creature? By now Ino and Chuji had appeared as well. A dash. She got interrupted as an explosion occurred, followed by another. A demon, similar to a bijou. They looked at her with eyes of surprise and disbelief. Sasuke was the first who spoke up. You're lying, that's impossible. Michiru shook her head. She saw Ambu and Jonin everywhere setting up a position, preparing to eliminate the threat. You have to believe me. If we wanted to cause any harm to this village, we've had ample time. Her voice raised, frustration and worry started lacing visible on her face. Kakashi glanced between the trio fighting and the shinobi standing guard. He pulled his headband up, revealing his Sharingan. All right, evacuate the remaining civilians. I'll notify the Hokage. Don't engage and stand by. You can't be serious? Ino shrilled. Look at what he did to Shikamaru and Kiba. We'll deal with that afterwards, for now follow my orders. With that he shined away. Michiru unclasped her cloak as well, letting out a small sigh of relief. At least that's dealt with now, time to help Ghost. She ignored the tremble of fear and dashed forward. Ryodora saw her coming and smirked. He dodged Ghost's high sweep and grabbed his wrist, flipping the hunter over his shoulder and down the arena wall towards the pit. He instantly saw that the newcomer changed her direction in an attempt to intercept her ally. Sia, kill her now. Sia nodded and dashed toward Michiru, who didn't notice the new threat behind her. As Ghost was free-falling, he managed to catch a glimpse of Sia before she disappeared. She's going for Michiru. He grabbed ninja wire, with a kunai attached to it, and threw it toward the blonde, chakra enhancing the throw. Michiru saw the kunai swiftly wrapping around her wrist. What the? The moment the wire had finished its spin, Ghost gave it a hard pull, dragging her with him down the wall. A mere second later Sia blurred into existence, and rammed the tip of her katana in nothing but concrete. Ryodora growled in annoyance, and jumped after the free-falling hunter, and quickly closed the distance before planting both his feet into his opponent's chest. Ghost grunted and tried to grab the leg but missed and could do little else as he was slammed into the ground. Sand sprang into the air as a small crater was formed by the impact. Ryodora landed next to the crater. You really should just give up, Ghost. Michiru slid down the side of the wall and sprinted over. Ghost? As the dust slowly settled, Ghost came walking out. His outfit was ruined in multiple places. His entire left sleeve was in tatters. That hurt. Sia appeared next to her companion. He still lives? Not for long. The male unknown dashed forward closely, followed by Sia. Ghost grabbed Michiru and pulled her close. Hold on tight. He stepped forward and disappeared, reappearing beside Kakashi Hatake. He was standing in a VIP booth that was exclusively used for the Kages. Glancing to his right, he could see two Kages sitting, with their guards standing at the ready. The first one was a gorgeous redhead, the Mizukage. The other one was someone he had once considered family, the Godame Hokage, Tsunade. He narrowed his eyes, holding back a sneer. What's going on here? One of the guards shouted. Ghost walked to the edge and stepped atop the railing. He turned to Michiru, ignoring the guards or Tsunade for that matter. Stay here, and remember what I said, alright? Let me help. I can fight. She stepped forward, letting the ninja wire fall to the ground. I'm a hunter too. You are, but you're scared, and I can't babysit you and fight them. Help me by keeping those Konoha dogs out of the fight. He let himself topple over the edge, falling into the pit for a second time. Michiru bit her lip as she watched him fall. She turned back to the Kages. You heard my companion, leave the fight to him. I don't take orders from snot-nosed brats. Tsunade stood up from her seat and let her gaze lock with Ghost's falling figure. She agreed with Kakashi though, as long as her shinobi provided a perimeter and making sure no civilians would caught in the crossfire, why not let them fight it out? Whoever remained standing at the end would be dealt with then. Kakashi, set up a 4-pronged barrier and make sure that all the civilians are evacuated. Ghost landed in the pit once more and dashed forward. He noticed that Ryodora was beginning the ritual to call the creature into their world. His katana was still laying at the top floor of the arena, so instead he grabbed 2 kunai, one in each hand. Sia intercepted the hunter and swung her blade, only to be blocked by a crossguard. You really don't know when to roll over and die, do you? Ghost pushed her off balance and swung one of kunai, slashing her across the face. Using the opportunity, he threw one of the kunai towards Ryodora, but got blocked by the katana of Sia. She had thrown her weapon to deflect his projectile. The dark-haired woman swung her fist and connected it with Ghost's jaw, who managed to block the follow-up attack and retaliated by trying to stick his kunai in her ribcage. The woman quickly backflipped and held out her hand, letting forth a steady stream of fire. The hunter was aware that unknowns didn't need hand signs to mold chakra and instead built chakra inside their chakra coils. The upside of this was that it could be anticipated due to its slower pace, whereas a proficient shinobi could perform jutsus faster. Chakra push! Ghost roared as his attack slammed against hers, and for a moment it seemed even, but it didn't take long for the hunter to gain the upper hand and Sia got the full brunt of it slammed into her. His attack wasn't deadly, but it was perfect for creating an opening or stopping a barrage of attacks. Creating another set of hand signs, he quickly formed the trademark jutsu that the Uchiha were known for. Katon, Gokake no Jutsu. The attack hit the unknown, blasting her away and out of the fight. Michiru looked from the balcony and had to restrain a cheer as she saw Sia being launched into the air. Ghost is doing great. The victory was short-lived as a burst of red chakra shot into the air and seemingly froze, engulfing the remaining unknown. Ghost widened his eyes in surprise and quickly dashed forward, his gauntlet already outstretched. Gotta stop him. A whip of red chakra emerged from the sphere of red chakra and grabbed him by the leg, crashing him through the wall of the arena and out the other side, into the village. Our dance was certainly entertaining, Ghost. But I've had enough. The red chakra died down and Ryodora appeared. Both his arms were transformed into something gruesome. Holy shit! Did you see that? Ano screeched, slipping an arm around Shikamaru in worry. It seemed that those two were right after all, Sakura responded as she looked down at the hole where the ghost got rammed through. We gotta do something. You heard the Hokage's orders, we have to maintain a perimeter, Shikamaru said between clenched teeth. His arm was wrapped tightly and strapped to his chest, minimizing any movement. It, however, did little to alleviate the pain that was already present. Meanwhile, Michiru was dashing across the rooftops of the buildings in search for ghosts, Kakashi alongside her. There, he pointed at the rubble where various villagers were looking. Michiru jumped off the roof and came to a skidding halt in front of the masses. She started pushing rubble aside until she found a tuft of brown hair. Ghost? Kakashi joined in and removed the majority of the rubble. Ma, when you said you would take care of it, I was hoping that the destruction of property would be maintained to a minimum. Michiru pulled the unconscious figure of Ghost from the building and set him down against the broken wall. Come on, you got to wake up. A moan erupted from deep down his throat before a series of coughs brought the brown-haired hunter back to the land of the living. Sake? Michiru's sweat dropped. Really? That's the first thing you say after you got blasted through a set of walls? The Konohanin turned rogue rolled his head from one side to the other. I take it he's merged? He tried to stand up, supported by Michiru. She nodded. Yeah, he's too strong for you alone, let me help you. Ghost looked down at his outfit. What remained of his left sleeve was now completely gone. The upper part of his outfit was mostly destroyed, revealing a tattered black shirt underneath, and his glasses were gone. His face mask was the only piece of clothing left that remained relatively intact. I got a trick left up my sleeve, Ivy got this. He patted her on the shoulder and walked away, slightly wobbling but regaining his composure. Let me help you, Ghost. Ghost clenched his teeth and started focusing chakra in his lower left arm. I said I got this. Dark chakra started swirling around his arm. With one last grunt, the chakra got sucked into this lower arm and turned into a horrifying monstrous claw. Michiru and the onlookers stumbled back. You're one of them? She fearfully asked, looking from his arm to his glowing red eyes. Ghost shook his head as he looked down at his arm. Not even remotely. They're not the only ones who can merge with a demon. Stay back, this fight will be over soon. He disappeared in a flash step, leaving behind a bewildered Michiru and an even more so surprised Kakashi. Tsunade grew tired of waiting and stood up. So far the man in the middle of the arena had done nothing, save the testing of his new abilities. Alright, send and dash. She stopped mid-sentence when Ghost reappeared in the arena. Ryodora slowly turned around and narrowed his eyes as he saw the change of appearance. You are a hypocrite, Hunter Ghost. You've done the very thing you tried to prevent us from obtaining. Ghost tilted his head, seemingly in thought. Not even close. This was forced upon me. You're going to destroy the shinobi world if we don't stop your kind. Ghost snapped his head to the left and saw Sia stumbling back onto the ring. Michiru, come here. Michiru, whom was standing at the edge of the pit, next to Kakashi, darted forward. What do you need me to do? She still had doubt, but she had known Ghost for years now. I have to trust him, for now. Kill her. He pointed his claw towards Sia, whom by now had managed to catch her breath. Michiru hesitated but nodded. I won't let you down. Ghost returned the nod, and without uttering another word he vanished and popped back up next to Ryodora. He slashes wildly with his claw but was met with no resistance. Following the red chakra, he saw the path Ryodora had taken. He's going for Michiru. He instantly followed his foe and appeared in front of him, blocking the strike meant for Michiru. The blonde hunter in turn didn't even bat an eye as she slammed the palm of her hand underneath the chin of Sia. Ghost twirled around and tried to strike his opponent in the side but was once more blocked. He quickly followed up with a quick and held out his hand. Chakra push. Ryodora dashed to the side and countered with an electric discharge that quickly shot to the former blonde. Once more turned to his go-to-escape maneuver, he quickly used Flash Step to gain some distance. To say that these unknown were an upgrade to the scouts was a slight understatement. I think you could use this. Ghost turned around and saw Kakashi holding his katana. He bit his tongue, refraining himself to insult the man in front of him. Instead, he grasped the katana and gave the man a nod. Stay out of the way. The hunter could hear air being displaced behind him and saw Ryodora dashing towards him. He spun around and hurled his katana like a spear towards the unknown, impaling him and slamming him into the wall, with the katana holding him in place. Sia gasped as she saw her teammate hanging there and roared in anger. Michiru knew she had the upper hand in her fight and victory seemed imminent. The blonde continued to exchange blows, slow but methodical as she had the entire fight. She changed things up and gave a low sweep, letting Sia stumble to the ground. She followed up by slamming her fist into the stomach of the unknown. A retaliatory kick gave Sia some breathing room and used it to stand back up, holding her stomach with one hand. You fucking bitch. You think just because you've got control of the match that victory is in your grasp? When the others arrive you'll be put down like the mongrels you are. Just like Mirarka, or Sylar, or all the others before that. Michiru held out one hand, while gripping her wrist with the other. She decided upon using a trick that Rome had taught her not so long ago. Tipura! She shouted. A thin beam erupted from the palm of her hand and shot straight towards her foe at an incredibly high speed. Sia widened her eyes in surprise, not expecting an attack of that speed. She dove out of the way but only succeeded partially. The beam tore through her side and exited out of her back, slamming into the wall. Not wasting her opportunity, the hunter immediately dashed forward. She quickly reached for two kunai and grasped them tightly. Sia held up her own hands and a wave of flames flew towards Michiru. She slid to the ground and effectively dodged the attack. Skidding underneath it, she could feel the heat scorch the back of her hand. It's over! Her slide caused her to ram straight into the unknown, and with one fluid motion planted both her kunai inside Sia's chest. Sia grasped her by the collar of her outfit. Go F fuck yourself. With the last of her energy, she planted her free hand in front of Michiru's chest. The blonde in return tried to wiggle free but noticed that the woman in front of her still had a surprisingly strong grip. Before she had time to prepare, an explosion of flames erupted from Sia's hand, blowing Michiru away. With a smirk, Sia passed away. The attractive blonde groaned as she slowly sat up, wincing in pain as she looked at her chest. Her outfit was still smoldering and a hole in her outer robe showed the shirt underneath. That was close. That certainly could have ended a lot worse. Kakashi stood in front of her with his hand held out. She accepted his offer, and he helped her back up. Arigato, Hataki-san. Kakashi gave her a nice smile before looking at Ghost, who was eyeing the body hanging on the wall. It looks like your job is finished. The moment he said those words, did the eyes of Ryodora snap open. Ghost groaned and dashed forward, already forming a set of hand signs. Ryodora grabbed the katana and pulled it out, freeing himself. I think this is yours. He proceeded to throw the katana right back at Ghost in the same fashion he earlier had. Halting his hand signs, he intercepted the blade with his claw, preventing the tip of the katana from piercing his chest. He was about to counter when he already saw Ryodora charging in, feet first. You stab me, I stab you. It's as simple as that. Ryodora roared as he rammed his feet against the handle of the katana, forcefully slamming it through the hunter's chest. Ghost silently gasped, not expecting the unorthodox attack. He fell to the ground with a thud. A large pool of blood slowly started seeping onto the ground, the sand absorbing a portion of it. Michiru screamed his name in distraught as she ran over, her hands shaking and her eyes locked on the unmoving body of Ghost. Kakashi watched the entire scene unfold and instantly turned his attention to the white-haired Sannin, who popped up the moment the hunter went down. We have to finish the job. Jiraiya's face was grim, and his eyes were narrowed. We end this before anyone else gets hurt. With those words uttered, Kakashi and Jiraiya dashed forward, with Ryodora doing the same. They clashed in the middle, with the unknown striking first, giving Kakashi an uppercut followed by a kick. He quickly crossed his hands in front of his face, wincing in pain as the wound in his chest protested. Jiraiya slammed into him with a Rasengan, but his foe firmly held his ground. A red sphere, not completely unlike that of a Jiraiya's Rasengan, got blasted from his hand and hit the Sannin in the chest, tumbling backwards. Doton Shinjuzanshu no Jutsu. Kakashi came bursting from the ground, a kunai aimed for the throat of Ryodora. He merely grabbed the incoming wrist and retaliated by slamming his sharpened claw inside the chest of the Kopinin. But instead of blood flowing freely, the body turned blue. What the? The body became distorted and suddenly electrocuted the unknown, who shouted out in pain. Kakashi wasn't done, however, and came charging in with his trademark jutsu. Chidori. He swung his hand forward, intent on piercing the man's body. Ryodora twitched in pain but was otherwise still okay. He dodged the attack and created another red sphere, blasting it into Kakashi, who puffed into a cloud of smoke. Jiraiya now came swinging in, but this time the man had opted for a grander approach. Holding his hand above him, he rammed the humongous Rasengan into the unknown, who didn't have time to dodge and got brought to his knees, trying to push the massive attack back. With an inhuman roar, the red-robed man started pushing back against Jiraiya's attack. As all this was happening, Michiru was crouched next to Ghost, hovering over him as she fearfully looked if he was still alive. His clawed hand had reverted back the moment he lost consciousness. A figure came running up and she noticed her immediately as Sakura, closely followed by other Konoha shinobi. Checking for a pulse, she sighed in immense relief when she found it. The blonde started to take in the damage done by the pierced blade. Let me help you, Sakura said as she crouched down opposite from her. We need to remove the blade first, Michiru said as she grabbed the handle. The moment I do, you need to stop the bleeding, alright? Sakura nodded. I'm trained by Tsunade of the Sannin. I know a thing or two about medical ninjutsu. Are you RA-? Jay just pulled the fucking thing out already. Ghost muttered as his eyes slowly opened, once more showing the bright blue color. Ghost. You need to stay still. You've lost a lot of blood. Just do it already. Ghost groaned as a sharp pain shot through his body. Michiru nodded, and looked at Sakura, whose hands were glowing bright green. With a small grunt she pulled the blade out, blood oozing out of the wound. The brown-haired hunter significantly paled and grit his teeth as the pain increased. Sakura started applying her jutsu, and slowly the bleeding stopped and the wound grew smaller. After a couple of moments more, she stopped. "All right, bandage the wound and remain still. It's very important." "How about you stay quiet? I can't even hear myself think," Oridoki growled as he watched Mitsuru bandage him. "Good job with taking care of Sia." Mitsuru nodded and smiled at him. "You scared me. I thought Ryodora had killed you." "He's gotta try a lot harder than that," he replied with a smirk. He saw that Mitsuru was done and tried to stand up. "Baka! You need to stay down," Sakura said as she pushed him back down. "What I need is for you to stop touching me and let me finish my job." "Kakashi and Jiraiya are already doing that. The guy's finished," Sasuke said as he stepped beside Sakura. "You could be a lot nicer, you know. She just saved your life." Ino joined in. 7 years had certainly matured the girl, at least physically. Her hair was roughly the same, but she wore a purple outfit with bandages strapped around her lower legs and arms. Ghost could easily imagine her being the cause for many heartbreaks within Konoha. "Would have lived just fine." "No, you wouldn't. You'd be dead," Sakura butted in. Before he could respond, Mitsuru butted in. "Take it easy, Ghost. Do it for me, alright?" "Fine." He grunted and watched as Kakashi and Jiraiya's impeccable teamwork was pushing the already weakened unknown to its limit. Ryodora was gaining ground, and Jiraiya knew that if the man kept the pressure up, he had no choice but to destabilize the jutsu. He also knew that Kakashi was waiting for his opportunity. "It's done. Surrender now," Kakashi ordered as he appeared behind the man, a kunai poised against his throat. Jiraiya dispelled the jutsu and strode over. "Stand down, and we'll let you live." Ryodora knew that any sudden movement would result with the kunai being plunged in his throat. He held his hands up in surrender. "I surrender." "Alright, let's clean this mess up, get Umbu in here and dash." Jiraiya started but trailed off when he saw Ghost walking over. "Ah, Oridoki-san, you're still alive," Kakashi said, but Ghost ignored him and grabbed Ryodora by his throat, the metal edges of the gauntlet digging into his skin. "How much men are on the way? How big is your fleet? What is your purpose behind your crusade?" Ghost barked questions at the man who only smirked at him. "What are you talking about? There isn't an army, it was only me and a couple of other individuals." "Tell me now." "I honestly haven't gotten the slightest of clues," Ryodora mocked and chuckled. Ghost sneered, and before anyone could stop him, he reached for a kunai and rammed it in the side of the man's head. "There's your fucking clue." Chaos erupted. Kakashi and the other nearby shinobi got into an offensive stance. "You've gone too far now. He surrendered." Ghost merely sneered at him as well. "You don't even know what kind of man he was. I did you tree huggers a favor." Tsunade dropped to the ground, followed by the Mizukage. "You scared my civilians and sent them into a frenzy, and you injured my shinobi along with severe damage to various buildings here in the village. I was willing to let it slide because it seemed you did it to protect this village. But then you decide to murder an unarmed prisoner? Umbu. Take this man and his partner to interrogation." Umbu dropped all around Ghost and Mitsuru. Ghost merely smirked at her before turning to Mitsuru. "Mitsuru," he appeared next to her. "Ready to go?" Mitsuru looked unsure. "Are you sure you want to leave, in your current state?" Oridoki wrapped his hand around her waist and pulled her close. "I'll live." He let his eyes dart around, locking eyes with each of his old friends. He gave a two-fingered salute. "Do try to keep up." And with that he exhaled deeply before taking a step forward, disappearing and leaving behind a trail of sand blowing upwards. Jiraiya looked down at the body of Ryodora. Somehow his claw had stayed, despite his death. Ghost disappeared the moment he got knocked out. "Put their organization at the top of our list. And update Ghost's profile in the bingo book. I want him A-ranked from now on." Tsunade barked orders as she pointed at Kakashi. "Of course, Hokage-sama." Ghost and Mitsuru came to stumbling halt in the middle of the forest, both trying to remain upright. "My God, Ghost! That trick of yours is incredibly uncomfortable," Mitsuru muttered as she rubbed her chest absently, where the attack had hit her. Ghost groaned and steadied himself. "Yeah, that is the downside, but you get used to it eventually." Mitsuru looked back to where she presumably thought the direction of the village was. "That was one heck of a fight." Ghost grinned at her but quickly turned into a grimace. "Yeah, it was a good one, alright." The blonde turned back to her partner. Let me take a look at your dressing. She lifted his shirt and noticed it was dark red. You really need to slow it down, Ghost. Sit down, let me take a look at it. Ghost merely nodded. Exhaustion started to creep in. Not only physically, but mentally as well. The reunion with his old friends had been nothing, if not taxing. Despite the fact that they were a severe nuisance, he kept his focus on the task at hand and had completed it, even if he needed help in the end. 2 unknowns, with one being merged as well, we got lucky. He watched silently as Michiru slowly pulled off his bandages and replaced it with new ones. He glanced down at his wound before letting out a grimace. I can't believe he threw my own blade at me.